the perfect home on the planet. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 326 New Human Activity Pattern. The April issue of the Star Gazette for the fourth year of Luoyang included two simultaneous announcements. Family seed farms in northern Rongai and central and southern Wao were the first to begin spring planting. The Roundhouse Command Center decided to establish a new engineering support department. Since landing at Shilin in the first year of Luoyang has established one army, guard army, and one regiment, conscription regiment, of the 1st Legion, forming one army and 15 departments. Under the command of the command center, scientific research and development and construction were pursued simultaneously. The original 15 departments were Calendar Department, Geography and Climate Department, Energy and Resources Department, Science Department, Non-Human Life Research Department, Environmental Safety Department, Agriculture Department, Health and Education Department, Logistics and Materials Management Department, Machinery Management Department, Construction Department, Housing Department, Organization Department, Propaganda Department, and Command Center. In the third year of Luoyang, the three Shilin external human settlements of Wao, Rongsan, and Rongai were established. By the end of the year, the Luoyang Chronicles of the Calendar Department recorded the human activity pattern as one army and 3.5 departments. The Chuxiu returned, bringing with it the second corps of Luoyang construction. After 3 months of initial adaptation training, the newly recruited Guard Corps was stationed at Fort Mulila, participating in the defense of the Shilin Highlands and field operations. Newly recruited professional technicians and single women completed their assignments and entered various departments for further training. A small number of volunteer workers were assigned to various departments as assistants, while the majority were assigned to the Engineering Support Department. Luoyang's current human activity structure consists of one army, 3.5 dozen departments. The newly added Engineering Support Department adopts the Guard Corps training and management model, allowing engineering work to encompass the needs of other departments. Operations are based on a request for participation system. Each department submits a request for engineering assistance, and the Engineering Support Department assigns personnel accordingly. General engineering duties previously handled by the Guard Corps during joint field operations, such as setting up observation posts, laying tracks, and maintaining facilities, have been transferred to the Engineering Support Department. After reading the Star Report, Feiyu thought to herself, no wonder Neonis Minister Jin seemed quite down these days. It turns out he's been working so hard, asking everyone to work and teach when they report back, but it hasn't really had much effect. This time, their non-human department received 8 new technicians and only 2 volunteer workers, who were initially assigned to the pilot breeding and farming park at Shilin headquarters for rotational training. Every department wanted more volunteers. Having more people to work would be a plus. Furthermore, according to the Luoyang Machine Assisted Tool Compliance Committee, the ratio of human to machine in work departments should be between 1:1 and 1:3. More volunteers, even if they don't work, just cleaning the robots, could help increase robot quotas. Now, since every department was struggling to get many volunteers, Yuan Wu had assigned them another unit, providing them with volunteers as needed. Feiyu didn't think about these things. She was focused on the spring planting. Her schedule for constructing the Benpangay Observatory and her family's farming schedule are now intertwined, keeping her busy non-stop. Every day when she gets home, Shangyan comes right up to her to report on her work. And during the busy farming season, the neighbors in Tongnan Urgia are always leaving messages, saying things like robots are broken or people are busy, asking the head of the group if there's anything they can do. The couple next door, Lin's Hitchin, are both obsessed with Luoyang's geocentric reactions. Their crops failed to grow the year before last and the year before last. After paying their quotas and harvesting, they have no surplus food at home, leaving them with little extra income. They never had the energy or enthusiasm to delve into the seed farm to begin with, and recently, they've been offered a training program for new employees by the science department. Previously, Leaky had brought local specialties and asked Feiyu, the head of the group, to find a more versatile robotic agriculture manager to take over their family's busy farming. There's no such thing as an all-powerful robotic agricultural manager. The Wao settlement has only been built for 2 years, and various phenological data are still being continuously monitored and monitored. A perfect, fixed, self-sustaining system is impossible to create. Timely intervention by a master controller is still necessary. Furthermore, the Robotic Assisted Tools Compliance Committee on any planet in the Alliance would never allow such a self-sustaining system to exist in a robot chip. Robots that don't require master controller intervention are not what humans need. This is a compliance rule. We're all professionals. When Feiyu said no, Shang Tannen, listening to the Lin couple discuss the recent geocentric elemental reactions and the interactions between Qi Changgong, Alpha Beta, and the others, offered a few words on robot regulations. The Compliance Committee currently has clear limits on the number of robots in settlement households, implemented under a temporary order from the new planet. Compared to the Alliance's common practice on mature planets, which sets a maximum household robot ratio based on asset management needs, the rules on Luoyang New Planet are simpler, temporarily setting a fixed limit of 1 robot per household. The organization department defines unmarried individuals as men, but men do not constitute households. All new members of the Second Legion, regardless of gender, currently residing within the protective shield of the Xiling Plateau, are single men. In the dome dormitories of the 4 major communities, 2 robots are assigned to every 20 people. These robots are centralized at the Community Service Center, ready for on-call service, consistent with the ratio used in the First Legion's couples' quarters. Therefore, without an all-powerful robotic agricultural steward, it's impossible to add even a less than all-powerful robot to each household during the busy farming season. After Shang Tannen explained his situation, the Lin couple expressed understanding but refused to take back their hometown specialties. Shang Tannen had no choice but to accept the cakes and pastries and place them in his own candy jar. He had already distributed most of the Maman specialties Grandma Li had sent, and had already given some to a neighbor. The remaining portion was for Feiyu to slowly consume. Shang Tannen emptied the bottom of the candy jar and gave it all back to the Lin couple. The Lin family's gift went back into Feiyu's candy jar. Although Shang Tannen claimed he couldn't add robots, he often took the initiative to help the Lin couple keep an eye on the seedlings in their fields. The Lin robots, based on system experience, the advice of the Agricultural Guidance Center, the actual soil moisture conditions of the plots, and the weather forecast, recommended alternative options for their owners. The couple hesitated and forgot about it. Then, while weeding and watering his own plot, Shang Tannen noticed that the Lin robots in the neighboring plots hadn't appeared, so he kindly called them on video. The couple, who often worked overtime, leaving early and returning late, weren't very familiar with the plots. But they were convinced by the gentle and sincere husband, Qi Changgong, and asked Shang Tannen for his opinion during the video call, immediately selecting a robot option. With the owner's clear instructions, the robot sprang into action. No mistakes. Shang Tannen is such a kind, enthusiastic, and conscientious person. If a robot malfunctioned in any of this Hongnan second affiliated units, they couldn't wait to go to the WoW Municipal Maintenance Office according to procedure, but instead went to the head of the unit, and he'd be there. Everyone in Hongnan second affiliated unit knew that minor robot ailments were no longer addressed to the municipal government. They simply went to the head of the unit and asked you if Brother Shang had returned. The head of the unit might be capable, after all, she was also involved in the robotics business, but since they had never seen her take on a task, the people in the unit kindly assumed her skills were less than ideal, and generally preferred to book her husband rather than take the initiative. Therefore, Feiyu stayed home more to oversee the spring planting, while Shang Tannen often went out to help during the busy farming season. It was unpredictable how much time he'd spend working at home, but when he returned, he'd make up for it in the fields, working through the night and day. Feiyu figured this was more efficient, as she'd also gathered material from her month-long home visits. Shang Tannen would write the first draft of the report, and she would do the final touches. He took advantage of daylight to check on the situation of other families and summarize it, so that he wouldn't get lost in his own fields at night when it was dark. It was just right. Chapter 327 The Flood of Technology. A lengthy meeting had already stretched on all day. It was the Robot Assisted Tool Compliance Committee's monthly meeting. With the arrival of the Second Legion at the start of the year, human activity had increased dramatically, as had the number of robots transported by the Chuxiu. They were developing a new framework for machine services within this new human activity landscape. Go home late tonight, skip dinner, and have a work lunch. Go home and put up your protective shields, And don't go out into the fields, Shang Tannen messaged Feiyu during a break in the meeting. Okay, she was always so succinct. He had one more message to share when he got home. With the increase in the number of humans and machines, the committee decided to expand accordingly, adding staff positions in various departments to communicate and enforce compliance regulations. This was similar to the Alliance's approach. Typically, the robot-assisted tool committees on each planet within the Alliance would establish monitoring points at key institutions on their planets. Initially, the Dean Planet Robot-Assisted Tool Compliance Committee had a monitoring office at its home campus, Donglan, focusing on assessing human-machine dependency. The cleaning of the student dormitories was directly impacted by this monitoring guidance. For a primitive, desolate planet like Luoyang, where humans have only just begun to establish presence, human-machine dependence isn't yet a threat, as mass production of complete robots is simply not feasible. However, always taking precautions, while researching how to maximize the efficiency of existing robots, the Luoyang Robotic Assisted Tools Compliance Committee is also eager to proactively prevent excessive human-machine dependence. Minister Jin of the Non-Humanity Department nominated Feiyu, and this was unanimously approved in the previous discussion. The Compliance Committee also discussed and resolved the issue of whether the principle of marital disqualification should apply to Feiyu and Shang Tannen, a married couple. Couples working together in the same organization aren't entirely uncommon. The Science Department has several such couples, some of whom are project partners, others have made significant contributions. This precedent was established when the recruitment team assigned tasks in Kaolachi, such as Lin Sicheng and Wu Yuan, who simply couldn't afford to leave either one behind. Shang Tannen and Feiyu are both members of the Luoyang Robotic Assisted Tools Compliance Committee, both due to precedent and practical circumstances. We have no one else in the non-human department. Deputy Director Yan has always been in charge of robot management affairs. There is a new person coming, who is going to serve as the Chief of Robot Management under Deputy Director Yan, but he has not been trained yet. Minister Jin said this. The Compliance Committee discussed it as a discussion and successfully approved Feiyu's candidacy. Next month, she will have an additional position, the Luoyang Robot Auxiliary Tools Compliance Committee stationed in the non-human department. Shang Tannen thought that Feiyu would say him without any expression after hearing about it. When she finds out that she has to submit a work report to the committee as a routine every month, she will probably frown. After turning off the communicator and looking up, Shang Tannen saw Qi Changgong walking towards him. Deputy Director Shang. Qi Changgong stood in front of him and greeted him. Chief Wei Qi, Shang Tannen nodded with a smile. Qi Changgong wasn't a member of the Compliance Committee, but since the landing on Shilin, he and Gu Jie had served as rotating defense commanders within the protective shield of Shilin Highlands, humanity's sole stronghold, and attended meetings with the Guard's auxiliary management personnel. Typically, the Alliance's Planetary Robotic Auxiliary Equipment Compliance Committee not only governs the use and development of civilian robots, but also oversees the use and planning of military auxiliary robots on its planet. According to the Nova Development Act, during the initial landing of Luoyang's First Legion, the Guard's auxiliary equipment was temporarily exempted from the Compliance Committee's direct binding instructions. However, they were still obligated to respond to the committee's inquiries in the event of a major incident and, when necessary, to engage in reasonable and friendly technical exchanges and mutual technical assistance with other robotics technology providers recognized by the committee. Today, Qi Changgong, Gu Jie, and the others, serving as the defense chiefs of their respective defense zones, attended the meeting as usual. This morning, they concluded discussions on the continued partial exemptions for the Guard's auxiliary equipment for the new year. The outcome was that the auxiliary equipment would continue to be subject to the exemptions provided by the Nova Development Act. Shang Tannen felt that Qi Changgong might be interested in the next topic. Sure enough. I heard that Deputy Director Shuang's man-robot project has made great progress. Let me congratulate you in advance, Qi Changgong said politely, but his eyes did not hide the sharpness of the commander of the Guard. He stared at Shang Tannen, trying to find out the truth. I said no, but Chief Qi probably didn't believe it, Shang Tannen said leisurely. Captain Gu Jie asked me the same question before going to the bathroom. Did Deputy Director Shang give the same answer? Qi Changgong raised his eyebrows. Same, Shang Tannen smiled. His smile always gave people a very sincere feeling. The manned robot project has indeed made some progress, but it is far from being practical. The Chuxiu has delivered a prototype this time, Qi Changgong continued. Produce a prototype, or more precisely, a research model, to provide us with the latest ideas for the alliance. Shang Tannen, thinking of Feiyu's words, couldn't help but repeat them with interest. 2 years ago? Qi Changgong glanced at him and nodded. After a pause, he said, Deputy Director Shang, when the manned robot project reaches a certain stage, it will inevitably require human testing. I have people, and I can provide you with as many as you want. Shang Tannen was slightly surprised, then said, Thank you. If there is a need, I will formally request assistance from the guards. I hope that time will come soon. I also hope to reach the testing stage soon. I wish you all the best. Shang Tannen looked at Qi Changgong's sturdy back and thought to himself, this next topic actually made Qi Changgong unable to contain himself. The guards are really perceptive. This is a new technological turning point that may break the existing ethics of robots. It is also a turning point that allows humans to more directly utilize the power of technology. Robot Code Rule 1, Never attack humans. Is this required for the Luoyang manned robot prototype system? General Shroud read out. When the robot assistance tool committees of each planet in the Alliance hold meetings, it's common practice to exclude robots from the meeting. Without a robot assistant, General Shroud personally read out no fewer than 4 or 5 agenda items today. The initiator of this agenda item is Shang Tannen, Luoyang manned robot R&D project manager, and deputy director of the planning department of the mechanical management department. Shang Tannen's graduation thesis at Donglan, which envisioned the system changes caused by changes in the shape and physical location of manned robots, had also academically explored the applicability of Rule 1 of the Robot Code. Just a few years later, he sat in a closed conference room in Luoyang's roundhouse, initiating a 20-minute system compliance session for the prototype in the lab. His mind flashed to those tall, silent, matte metallic components. Yes, he preferred to call them components, and his expression grew serious. The tide of technology was unstoppable, just like them, from the Alliance to Luoyang. Chapter 328, Matters Between Humans. Why ask whether the first rule needs to be installed? The guard officers present were undoubtedly deeply interested in the manned robots. They didn't have a vote, but they could ask questions. Because the prototype sent by the Alliance didn't have it installed, will not installing the first rule affect the manned robot's ultimate practical performance? Cao and Feiyu expressed concern. The guard's defense ministers had been sitting in the audience since morning for this closed-door meeting of the Compliance Committee, having only briefly exchanged views during the previous topic, the discussion of exemptions for auxiliary guard equipment. Coming from military backgrounds, they possessed a strong sense of discipline and were well educated. Even though their respective defense zones were overwhelmed with affairs and taking a day off to attend the meeting was a significant loss of time, they calmly followed the proceedings and listened to each point of discussion. But this moment was different. Everyone understood that this matter affected their future equipment and, first and foremost, the adjustment of their regular training patterns. The differences in underlying systems will ultimately be reflected in the degree of practical functionality. Shang Tannen shook his head. But the implementation or default implementation of the first rule affects far more than just machine functionality. It also affects the behavior of the controller. Let me give you an example, he explained. If a security patrol member spots an offender, they can dispatch the patrol partner robot to pursue and detain the offender on the spot, then await further instructions from the patrol member. This is a robot following the first rule, the maximum permitted restraint against humans under security patrol regulations. Any robot can only restrain humans and wait for orders. Matters between humans should be resolved by humans themselves. This was the general outline for this round of robot revival development, following the implementation of the robot revival order a century ago. Therefore, this is the legal operating method for the security patrol member and his robot partner. The next process is for the patrol member to read out the immediate disposition opinion to the detained offender, or obtain disciplinary advice from higher authorities on the spot, inform the offender, release him/her, or transport him/her to the patrol airship for transfer to the relevant law enforcement agency. This step involves human law enforcement officers legally educating and punishing lawbreakers. If the offender resists or flees, law enforcement officers have the right to take action to promptly and effectively halt the offender's egregious behavior. During this process, the patrol robot partner provides coordinated interception, demonstrating a deterrent effect and, at most, further restraint. However, If a public security patrol team member is equipped with a manned robot partner, they can indeed follow the existing patrol robot partner's operating methods and use non-aggressive means to pursue the offender and stop him in his or her area. This presents a problem. Next, suppose the patrol member, while inside the manned robot, reads the immediate action opinion. According to the general principles of the Restoration Order and the operational procedures stipulated in the Public Security Patrol Law, they should read this opinion face-to-face to the offender. And the offender has every right to request this. If the patrol member remains inside the manned robot shell and reads the opinion using the robot's external signal output device, this could easily be considered improper operating procedures. Therefore, according to the current operating method, the patrol member should step into the manned robot and read the opinion face-to-face to the offender. Doesn't this process seem unreasonable? Of course, the Public Security Patrol Act can be amended as necessary to accommodate new developments. The in-person reading of opinions could be expanded to include reading inside a manned robot, which would also be legally valid. Next, the offender, after hearing the opinion regarding his handling, or perhaps even before, chooses to flee. The patrol members must stop him. The manned robots, having been equipped with the first robot rule, strictly adhered to the guiding principle of never attacking humans at any time, and attempted to once again pursue and intercept the fiercely resisting offender. I've simulated a pursuit scenario, showing and activated the conference room's presentation screen. A tall robot with a matte metallic finish emerged. Its exterior was unadorned, with 4 security windows below its collarbone. Standing opposite it, at hip height, was Wan Lingguang, the chief administrator of the auxiliary guards and commander of the Murala Bastion No. 10. Wan Lingguang suddenly turned and ran. The tall robot instantly took a large, nimble stride. Qi Changgong's eyes flashed, and he exchanged quick glances with Gu Jie and the others, all watching the robot's movements closely. They were naturally very familiar with Bastion Commander Wan Lingguang, No. 10, having served in the same guards for many years and witnessed numerous drills and assessments. They knew his skills well. Wan Lingguang swiftly fled, but the towering robot, in a few strides, blocked his path. Wan Lingguang spun, only to be caught up again in an instant. The towering robot extended its iron-like arm and carefully pressed down on Wan Lingguang's shoulder. This was the security patrol robot's signature restraining signal for an escapee, indicating its desire for cooperation and a. The force wasn't strong, just enough to react instantly to the escapee's movement data. If the escapee cooperated and relaxed, the robot would simply place a light touch on the shoulder. If the escapee's muscles tensed, attempting a sudden burst of force to escape, the robot would increase its pressure. In short, the escapee would be held in place under its gentle gaze. Unrelated sentence fragment. 1691. There are always many people who refuse to be imprisoned, and there are also many experienced escapees. Wan Lingguang suddenly ducked, avoiding the robot's grasp, and rolled through the gap between the robot's feet. The robot reacted quickly, backhanding a tug at Wan Lingguang's back as he stood up. The robot suddenly froze. Wan Lingguang didn't even look back, his feet continuing to flee like smoke. The robot, with its powerful arms extended, remained frozen in place. Reaching out to pull, that was the controller's first reaction. In this case, the first rule of the base system is triggered, and the manned robot automatically shuts down according to the system settings. This skips the 10-minute shutdown time. Wan Lingguang had already fled far away. Qi Changgong and the others frowned. If it had been a normal patrol robot, the patrol team could easily have caught up by then. In fact, when Wan Lingguang attempted to escape, the patrol robot could have simply stood by to deter him, and the patrol team would have made the pull, preventing Wan Lingguang's escape and eliminating the need for the robot to shut down. Attempting to attack humans is a serious system error for robots. According to general practice, the robot must freeze all activities and immediately return for repair to determine the cause of the error. Only robots with special applications are given a chance to recover. Chapter 329, Human-Machine Fusion and Human-Machine Separation. 10 minutes later, the towering manned patrol robot retracted its grip, soared, and pursued Wan Lingguang. It eventually caught up to him, using its body to block his every leap, but the polite touch on his shoulder was always evaded. Wan Lingguang tumbled across the ground, unable to escape the robot's relentless pursuit, yet still able to circle the field. This game-like sequence lasted for several minutes before the robot, finally unable to bear it any longer, raised a foot. A single stomp would have pinned the tumbling Wanling down, immobilizing him. But at the crucial moment, the robot lifted its entire leg and circled the air, seemingly stretching and kicking for exercise. Wanling seized this opportunity to leap forward a few more times. The towering robot suddenly froze, and Gu Jie exclaimed, "No file, why did it stop again?" The cabin opened, and a man jumped out. Qi Changgong's eyes flashed. The person in control was Shuang Tanan himself. The tall robot, switched to autonomous mode, rushed several steps forward, blocking Wanling. Shuang Tanan simultaneously pressed forward, extending his palms and kicking his legs, tangling with Wanling. Less than 10 seconds after he left the machine, he had grabbed Wanling. Shuang Tanan turned off the demonstration screen. "This is a simulation of a manned robot's behavior," he said. Qi Changgong raised his hand and gestured, "Excuse me, in the simulation just now, were the various actions of the manned robot from a fully simulated situation?" Or he paused, his eyes fixed on Shuang Tanan. "Actual control by the controller, actual control," Shuang Tanan replied. Qi Changgong heard Xiao Wenfei's surprised breath beside him and couldn't wait to interrupt and ask, "Is this a prototype? Was it given to us by the Alliance, or is it our own? We copied the Alliance's. Has actual operation reached this level?" Feng Lai asked. "Yes." Shuang Tanan glanced at the defense ministers of the several defense zones and the other members of the compliance committee. "Gentlemen, you've already seen some of the differences between human-machine integration and separate human-machine activities. In the traditional separate human-machine activity model, the robot has a preset system. Even though it constantly receives commands from the controller during its actions, its system remains relatively independent. Therefore, when designing the system, we focus more on how to balance its free will and reduce the risk of excessive abuse of free will. In the new human-machine integration activity model, the robot still has a preset system, but if the system can maintain its freedom of action, it can completely do without more sophisticated systems for intelligent decision-making, character development, and emotional stability. Because it can be directly led by the controller at all times during its actions, it can be said that it successfully resolves the risk of robot free will that has always plagued system designers. Its consciousness will be entirely that of the controller. To be more precise, a manned robot is a layer of powerful armor on the controller that can move at will. Problems arise with this. When humans merge with robots, the robot's free will is minimized as much as possible. When they are directly imbued with human consciousness, they are also directly subject to the robot's constraints. In the simulation demonstration just now, when humans merged with robots, as soon as the human in the main control room wanted to perform the most efficient pursuit, the manned robot would immediately shut down due to violating the first rule of the robot, resulting in delays in official business. After multiple shutdown and recovery cycles, the system would self-collapse. The Alliance's manned prototype has removed the first rule. The one just demonstrated was our Luo Wang's imitation prototype, which still has the first rule built in. If we maintain this base system, in order to prevent the system from self-collapse, our project team will apply to connect with a relevant legal department to allow us to reduce the normal shutdown time, increase the number of shutdown recovery times, and maximize the smoothness and efficiency of the robot's work. If our Luo Wang prototype imitates the prototype sent by the Alliance in the base system and removes the first rule, then the project team will need to obtain permission from the Luo Wang Compliance Committee. Gentlemen, I'm raising this question for technical reasons, but in the end, it really comes down to ethics, Shuang Tanan asked calmly. Can the Luo Wang manned robot remove the first rule of the robot code, never attack humans at any time? After the meeting, as General Shroud and several ministers left, Shuang Tanan saw Gu Jie approaching him quickly. Xiao Wenfei was holding their number 10 bastion commander, Wanling, with Feng Lai and Qi Changgong following closely behind. Brother, let's go have dinner together, Shuang Tanan smiled, but before he could say anything, Gu Jie grabbed his arm around his shoulder. Come on, it's rare for us to get to Shilin these days. I heard this small restaurant in the roundhouse is much more refined than before. We're spending the whole day here anyway, so after dinner, let's go to the Mulala Market Bar. I hear it's getting popular now. On weekends, it gets really lively, and new people love to grab a table. Gu Jie turned his head and asked, Is that right, Aki? Yes, Qi Changgong replied. Right, after dinner, let's go to the bar. It's the weekend. Xiao Wenfei joined in the fun with a chuckle. I have to go home after dinner, Shuang Tanan apologized honestly. Hey, brother, Gujia chuckled. Why are you so, what? Is it your deputy Yan who's in charge of access control? Even Cao Wenfei, Wan Lingguang, and Feng Lai, who were standing behind him, couldn't help but laugh. The new robots broke the first rule. We'd like to ask you for advice, Gujia confessed. As they spoke, the group walked out of the corridor outside the meeting room and turned into the circular corridor. They met 3 women, all of them. One was wearing the dark red winter uniform worn by the First Legion's wives for the new year, while the 2 beside her were wearing the pale green inner protective suits of the Second Legion. They didn't head straight into the inner circle. The first one, smiling, stopped at the entrance to a corridor in the circular corridor, presumably waiting for Shuang Tannen, Gujia, and the rest of the group to pass before entering. Shuang Tannen and Gujia stopped immediately and let them go first. When the 2 sides looked at each other, Shuang Tannen raised his eyes in surprise, and the leading woman was Hu Jing. Sister-in-law, long time no see, brother Shuang, what a coincidence. Hu Jing was surprised and smiled. Captain Gu, you are here today too. She was really a thoughtful and generous person. She did not forget to nod to Shuang Tannen and Gujia behind them, and greeted them with a smile. Hello, captains, hello, captains. The 2 girls beside Hu Jing were a little reserved and awkward, but very polite, and immediately bowed slightly. Shuang Tannen glanced over when he heard the voice, and greeted Hu Jing. Sister-in-law, I have always heard that you are very busy. When you and Situ are free, come to our house and have a visit, okay, brother Shuang. When you and Fixu are free, come to our house. Hu Jing nodded with a smile. Since there were people around them, she didn't say much. Brother Shuang, everyone, please get busy. This is our new girl. We're going to a meeting. The 2 girls had been waiting quietly on the side while Hu Jing was speaking. At this moment, one of them, with the faintest smile on her face, glanced gently at Shuang Tannen and his group. Sister-in-law, take care. Sister-in-law Feng, take care. Shuang Tannen caught the girl's eye and was slightly surprised. The girl's eyes were clear and she looked so gentle and friendly. Chapter 330 Cave Valley. Minister Jin is a good man. The non-human department did not get many technicians and executive assistants in this manpower allocation, but Minister Jin, as always, enthusiastically cooperated with the Roundhouse's second phase of new employee training plan and never found excuses to shirk invitations. Most of the second phase of new employee training was transferred to the departments to which the new employees belonged. As for the newly established Engineering Strategy Department, its various training courses were assisted by experienced lecturers from various departments coordinated by the Roundhouse. Minister Jin asked Feiyu to take another course this time, and she could get an extra 100 contribution points at the end of the month. Feiyu looked at the sky, where dark clouds were gathering. The weather warning system had warned early in the morning that there would be thunderstorms and strong winds today. In May, the beginning of spring, there would always be such weather. Report to the instructor. The 27th team of the Engineering Strategy Department has assembled. Please ask the instructor for instructions. Feiyu turned around and glanced at the captain who made the loud roar. Go in, she added quietly. Don't be so loud inside, it'll resonate. Yes. Thank you, instructor, for your guidance. The handsome, muscular captain of Team 27 immediately lowered his voice, bowed solemnly to Feiyu, and turned to assign tasks to his team. Everyone follow your own route. You can travel together when routes overlap, but not at other times. In case of any unexpected situations, call and communicate with the instructor immediately. After retrieving the mission target, gather at cave number 1 and wait for orders. Do you understand? Understood, the 20 or so strong men shouted in unison. Feiyu watched the captain and his men slip into the cave. She waved to the hunter robots on either side, and they surrounded her and entered a nearby cave entrance. This class was about training for walking in confined environments. This was a place called Hudongao in the Kaiyuanping mountain range. Within the gully was a hidden river flowing through it, surrounded by mountains, and half of it was eroded by craters. Over the course of countless years, constantly eroded by the wind, rain, and water, and eroded by underground rivers, these caves have continued to expand and connect, forming a dense spiderweb across the mountainside, many of which are interconnected. The caves are dim, and in weather like today, even just a few steps into the entrance feels as dark as midnight. Feiyu instructed her personal hunter to activate the emergency light, sweep out a clean stone surface, spread a mat, and sit down. The hunter robot teams on both sides stood in silence. The timer began. In accordance with the rules for field classes, she reported the start of the class to the various observation posts in the Qi mountain range, the commuter patrol bases in the western Wao plain surrounding the Qi mountain range, the commuter patrol bases in the northern Rongai plain, and the Tongkiao fortress on the Shelin highlands. Special field training course organized by the Engineering Support Department, Karst Cave Course, 20 students from the 27th team. The instructor is Yan Feiyu from the Non-Human Lifeform Research Department. They have all entered the cave. 20 auxiliary guards have been requested and are in place. 22 hunter robots for auxiliary teaching have been in place. The environmental conditions are good and have not deviated from the course plan. The class will start in 3 minutes and end. Got it, keep in touch. Responses came from all over. Feiyu looked outside the cave, where the new leaves of the wild ferns that had just grown in spring swayed in the wind. There was nothing to do. She was not afraid of the claustrophobic environment, but she set the exit hole number 1 next to the students' entrance hole. After they came back around the route they drew, she would give her the marker and the class would be over. The instructor worked hard on the course design, but the actual teaching was very relaxing. Feiyu half-closed her eyes, thinking about the continental shelf of the Ojiri Peninsula extending to the Benpang Sea. Looking from there, it was like the underworld. In May, she would deploy more observation spheres in the ridges at the base of the continental shelf, and 2 more observation stations would begin to be established on the Keith Ridge, in the middle of the Benpang seabed. Report, a voice suddenly echoed against the cave wall. Feiyu opened her eyes, glanced sideways, and, concealing the strange look in her eyes, nodded gently. Captain Yubai of the 27th team of the Engineering Support Department has returned. The man lowered his voice under Feiyu's gaze and continued his report at the entrance of the corridor. Excuse me, instructor, may I show you the marker? Yes, he said. Then he entered the cave. Feiyu placed her hand on the septum, but before she could stand, he strode a meter in front of her, knelt on one knee, and respectfully held a leaf in his palm, holding it before her eyes. She glanced at it. The leaf was fresh and tender, with undamaged edges, exactly as it had been when the robot had picked it before class began. Put it on the ground. Yes, the captain withdrew his hand, his eyes darting around the ground in front of him before looking up and asking, excuse me, instructor, where should I put it? Anywhere, okay. Feiyu watched as the captain placed the leaf beside her stone. When he raised his head and made eye contact, his gaze seemed to inquire if this was a suitable spot. She calmly instructed, find a place to sit and wait for the others to arrive. Yes, Yubai walked away and found a round stone 3 or 4 meters away from Feiyu. Just as he was about to sit down, a septum was silently extended under his nose. He was startled, then saw Hunter Robot standing next to him. He turned to look at Feiyu. The cave was dim, but he could still vaguely see the smile on his face. Thank you, instructor. Feiyu said nothing. Yubai placed the septum on the stone and sat down. The hunter who was providing him with cushion stood behind him without saying a word. He glanced at the robot, then at Feiyu, without saying a word. After a while, he also turned to the cave entrance and silently looked at the vegetation outside. The cave was silent for a while. There was a crackling sound of thunder outside, which made the cave buzz with echoes. The sky became darker, and there was no longer a boundary between the mountain outline and the horizon, all blurred like a ball of ink. Just as the cave absorbed the residual sound, there was a slight flash in front of people's eyes, followed by another series of thunder. Feiyu glanced and saw that Yubai was looking at her again. She stared at the outside of the cave without saying a word. Soon, raindrops fell with a crackling sound, and in an instant, there was a vast expanse of water. The rain was so heavy that even the wild ferns could not be seen clearly. The rain covered the entire cave entrance, and almost from the moment it fell, it poured down the slope of the cave entrance. You can sit somewhere else, Feiyu said. Yes, Yubai immediately jumped up and quickly moved to a higher position, close to the cave wall. The rainwater had gathered into a white torrent, rushing through the cracks in the cave's rocks, and continuously pouring into the corridor further inside. Yubai looked at Feiyu. Her stone was 2 large stones away from the water flow. The water splashed on the bottom edges of the 2 stones and rushed away. There were many robots standing around her. He gritted his teeth and said in a high voice, Teacher, my brothers are still in there. Yeah. Yubai waited for a long time, but didn't hear another word. He looked at the corridor, turned his head to look at Feiyu again, hesitated for a moment, jumped over a few stones, and approached Feiyu. Feiyu raised her eyes, staring at him with her clear black and white eyes. Teacher, we are not familiar with the terrain and climate here. If the water floods inside, Yubai said anxiously, his eyes darting around Feiyu's face, will it affect their ability to complete the course? We have several brothers who are not very good at swimming. Which ones? Yubai was stunned and called out a few names. Seeing Feiyu lower her head, he immediately lowered his gaze and saw that the fingers on her knees moved slightly, as if she was taking notes. Anything else? Feiyu raised her eyelids. Yubai paused slightly. No more. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 331 Students. Under Feixu's silent gaze, Yubai turned and saw the hunter who had followed him still standing solemnly beside him, his bionic eyes fixed on him. He walked back. A moment later, he set the diaphragm down and leaned against the cave wall, silently observing the heavy rain at the entrance. Wow, wow, voices and the patter of water echoed from the corridor. Feixu glanced sideways. The sounds were gradually approaching the corridor entrance. Here it is. Damn, what kind of exit is this? Yubai suddenly coughed loudly. The voices in the corridor fell silent, and then a cry of surprise, accompanied by the patter of water, became more intense. Boss, you're here? Damn, I thought I was in the wrong place. What's going on outside? Yubai stared at the corridor entrance, his eyes quickly glancing towards Feixu. Feixu remained seated motionless, this time not even making the slightest move to stand. Hey, yo, a man clung to a protruding stone tooth at the entrance of the corridor and stood still. The cave was dimly lit. The man was first attracted by the downpour at the cave entrance, then saw the two people standing nearest and took a closer look. Boss, are there any other brothers? No, just me and the instructor, Yubai said forcefully, tilting his head towards Feiyu and motioning to the man. Show the instructor the marker you got. The man glanced at the hunter robot beside Yubai in disbelief. Just as he was about to mutter something, he suddenly saw Feiyu sitting on a stone. His mouth opened wide, his eyes darting around to scan the hunter robots leaning against the cave wall beside Feiyu. He said quickly and swiftly, Hey. The man climbed onto the higher rocks on both sides, jumped closer, reached into his trouser pocket, and pulled out a leaf. He wiped it along the seam of his trousers with both hands, drying the leaf and his wet hands. Here, teacher, I found it, the man grinned, standing upright, and handed over his arm diagonally and forcefully. Feiyu tilted her neck slightly, her gaze starting from the man's face, following his arm to the leaf, and she said in a low voice, Put it on the ground. Okay. The man chuckled happily twice, bent down, and with a snap, put the leaf on Feiyu's big rock, right in front of her septum. Feiyu stared expressionlessly at the man's lowered big head, which slid in an arc through the air in front of her eyes and returned to an upright position. Find a place to wait. Her voice became increasingly flat. One of the hunters standing by tiptoed out, followed the man, and handed over a septum. Oh, what is it? The man took it, turned it over to look at it, and walked towards Yubai happily. Come and sit down, Yubai greeted with a smile, glanced at Feiyu, and lowered his voice again. Let's wait for the other brothers. The two sat down next to each other. The man raised his eyes to look at the hunter next to him, then looked at Yubai, and said with a chuckle, I have one too. The cave was quiet for less than 2 seconds, and then the man spoke again. It's raining so hard. When did it start? Hey, no wonder I seemed to hear a rumbling sound in the cave before. It was creepy. How is it in there? Yubai whispered. It's okay. When I came, the water was accumulating outside. The man looked at the water that continued to flood the middle of the cave and said with a sigh, I don't know what it will be like now. If it doesn't stop raining. The man made eye contact with Yubai, leaned over and glanced at Feiyu, and muttered a few words from his lips. Our female teacher. Yubai suddenly raised his elbow and bumped the man, his eyes sweeping over the hunter next to him. The man immediately pursed his lips. After a moment, he glanced back and saw the hunter standing solemnly, his bionic eyes not even glancing at him. He exhaled slowly, smirked at Yubai, then straightened his face and solemnly admired the rain outside the cave. Feiyu ignored the two students, scowling as he pondered the progress of his own Pantgay observation station. More students emerged from the corridor. Yu Bai, acting as a very competent leader, quietly greeted them as they arrived, instructing them to show their markers to Feizai's seat, then told them to return and take their seats. They huddled together, leaving Feizai with a larger space. He also told them to be quiet. The rain subsided, and the wild ferns outside began to green. Many broken leaves were knocked to the ground, but the raindrops were no longer strong enough to sweep them away in the current. They drifted a short distance, clinging to the cave entrance or the bottom of a rock. The rain gutter in the center of the cave slowed noticeably, leaving only a thin layer of water moistening the ground. The fern fronds had almost stopped trembling. Brother Kyong's light pierced through the gaps between the clouds and trees, scattering onto the fern fronds, instantly illuminating them with a vibrant green. Instructor, the first unexpected call for help arrived. What's the matter? Feiyu's cold, clear voice suddenly echoed from the cave, and the students all turned to look at her. There's something stuck on my glove, and I can't get it off. The student seeking help had a broad forehead and a square face, his eyes a bit anxious. On the screen, he stretched out his right hand, as if trying to keep it as far away from his body as possible. His left hand clung tightly to a large boulder, as if trying to sit back. Oiled melon seeds, someone whispered from the group of students. No mistakes in the poem, the content, the book, the forum. Feiyu gently moved the projection screen and finally understood why the man named Yu Guan didn't dare sit down. Under the stone he was holding was a pool of water, shimmering with a dark, shimmering light. Teacher, what should I do? The students in the group giggled at the raspy, half-crying tone in his voice. Feiyu glanced sideways, and the group immediately fell silent. Wait, Feiyu stood up. 3 hunters immediately tiptoed out of the group. Stand by, she glanced at the students. Teacher, Yu Bai stood up. Are you going to help Yu Guan? Let me go too. Feiyu paused, glanced at Yu Bai, and said after a moment, what's the reason? Oh, Yu Bai paused, about to answer. Feiyu frowned, annoyed by his slowness. Follow me, she tilted her head and entered the corridor first. Yes, footsteps were heard behind her, but Feiyu didn't even turn her head. The tunnel was humid, the accumulated water that had caused so much trouble had disappeared, but the ground was very slippery. Instructor, turning around this section of the tunnel, they arrived at a wider cavern, and Yu Bai hurried to catch up. When doing a mission, it's best not to hesitate when speaking, Feiyu interrupted. Yu Bai glanced at her and immediately said, yes. I was wondering if there's a hidden river here? The rainwater that just came in has disappeared. Yes, Feiyu was also quite regretful. The captain had rushed the first time and missed the change in weather. Perhaps they hadn't felt the rumbling thunder and the whirring undercurrent deep in the cavernous depths. The second time, unfortunately, the accumulated water had drained into the hidden river. If she hadn't wanted to check on the body of water where Yu Guan was trapped, she wouldn't have been distracted any further. She could have asked the captain to take a different route. Chapter 332 Cave. The hunter led the way, and Feiyu didn't need to use her sense of direction at all, and walked smoothly. Yu Bai was good. When encountering a narrow place, he automatically took a full step back. When it was spacious, he took a small half step to her side, keeping the distance between the front and the back within the range where both parties could coordinate with each other at any time. Her hunter robots therefore kept a tight formation throughout the whole journey. The deeper they went into the cave, the darker it became. Teacher, is that you? A shout echoed from the front, and the cave wall began to buzz back and forth. Suddenly, countless black shadows fluttered by, stirring up 1,000 strands of cold wind. Feiyu lowered her head and closed her eyes, and instantly smelled a fresh woody fragrance, which reassured her. She hated these cave bats the most. If one rubbed against her body, she would feel nauseous for a long time. It was even more uncomfortable to look at than the bagworms in the seabed karst caves. I'm coming, don't be impatient, she suppressed her anger and connected the game. On the projection screen, the wandering creature's face froze for a moment, then his eyes lit up, and he cried out in a voice like tears of joy, Teacher, teacher, I can't hold on any longer. He was so panicked that he couldn't even tell if Feiyu was communicating with him through the communication channel. He was afraid Feiyu wouldn't hear him, so he raised his voice as high as he could, loud enough to carry for more than 10 miles. From within the hunter robot's wing membrane protection barrel, Feiyu could sense the vibrations of the cave walls. Those annoying gliding sounds began to rise again. I command you to remain silent. Feiyu paused, then added, or else you'll attract cave creatures." The wandering creature's face showed fear, and he immediately pursed his lips. Feiyu breathed a sigh of relief, then waited a moment as the hunter robot automatically opened its wing membrane protection barrel. She turned to the side and, in the darkness, saw Captain Yubai looking over at her. She could vaguely see his eyes. Feiyu worried that one of the team members had been frightened, and that the captain would also be half frightened. "Don't be afraid," she said in a deep voice, offering a brief explanation. "These are cave bats, harmless." "Yes," Feiyu was pleased with the calmness of the voice. "Follow." The two continued forward. After a few steps, Feiyu glanced sideways at Yubai, whose steps had become lighter and his movements more nimble. "Teacher," Yubai said. I'm reporting to you. Just now, when the robot suddenly enveloped me, I smelled a scent." Feiyu continued walking. "Describe the feeling." "Very faint." "Anything else?" "Sorry, I can't give you a more detailed feeling." I held my breath after I smelled it. Feiyu stopped in her tracks, half-turned, staring intently at Yubai's dark silhouette. "Teacher," Yubai said hesitantly, "is this from a cave bat?" "I did it." Feiyu turned back and continued walking, wondering how amazing Yubai's breath-holding skills were. "You did it? You mean, you added a scent to the robot?" "You could say that. The hunters would be a life-saving shield in the dark world of the sea." This year's new winged membrane protective barrel was a stealth attachment Feiyu had the mechanical management department install for her. Based on the design principles of the medical robots used for medical examinations at Shillong Hospital. After several sea operations, she felt the experience was lacking. Ever since the bug incident, when the medical robots treated her as a high-risk individual and carried her to the hospital, she'd harbored a slight reluctance towards these sealed barrel-like attachments. So she made some changes, adding a calming scent to the winged membrane barrel. This scent immediately caused people to hold their breath. Feiyu thought to herself, this batch of hunters couldn't be erased. When the volunteers actually went out to sea, she'd have to warn them beforehand, lest they become too frightened to breathe. Using the winged membrane protective barrel on the seabed wouldn't be as relaxed as the current cave trials. If everyone fainted from suffocation and the alarm went off, who would she be able to save? Feiyu was silent as she turned a corridor. The hunter leading the way suddenly stopped and bowed to her. A cave was revealed. In the center of the cave, there was a faint yellow light. Under the light, a person was huddled against a stone mound, as if he was performing a lifelike artistic portrait of bending his waist and drawing about to shoot an eagle. Teacher, Yugua had already heard the footsteps in the corridor. He had been staring at the cave entrance with a stiff neck. Now he could no longer hold it back and called out softly, his eyes brimming with pitiful joy. Feiyu nodded and quickly looked around the cave. Below the base of the stone mound was a dark lake that almost filled the entire cave, leaving only a small slope at the entrance on both sides. Stand still, she asked Yubai to stand at the cave entrance, her eyes following Yugua's outstretched right hand. Yugua's emergency lights illuminated this section of mid-air even more clearly than the lake itself. What are those? Yubai asked in a low voice. Feiyu didn't answer. Looking closely at Yugua's gloves, through the light and shadow, she could see a white, semi-solidified liquid thread extending all the way to the cave ceiling. The ceiling was truly bizarre, seemingly studded with round stone eggs. These round protrusions varied in size and were not densely distributed. Feiyu had the hunters activate their emergency lights. The brightness was so strong that the surfaces of the stone eggs reflected a faint shimmer, a breathtaking sight. Above Yugua's position, the round stone eggs, already enormous, seemed to be pulling out a stream of gel. From the edges of this gel, tiny strands of liquid slowly flowed, eventually converging on Yugua's arm. Feiyu nodded at the hunters. Immediately, the two hunters stepped out, twisting their waists, and soared across the lake, landing a moment later on a rocky mass in the center of the cave. Although the space was cramped, it wasn't a big problem for them. One of them stood on one leg, while the other leaned forward, holding themselves in a position impossible for humans. They lifted Yugua's arm and helped him remove his gloves. In just a second or two, one of the hunters clamped Yugua around the waist, twisting and closing, and transformed into a shuttle barrel. Without a sound, Yugua was trapped inside. The shuttle-shaped winged barrel flew away from the stone pile, nimbly passing between Yubai and Feiyu, and landed steadily in the back passage. Yubai withdrew his gaze from the shuttle barrel and saw the remaining robot in the cave put on Yugua's white silk-stained gloves on its bionic arm, and its feet loosened. The white silk suddenly bounced, pulling the hunter robot upward. Yubai looked closely in surprise. The white silk rebounded to an inch or two below the stone egg on the cave ceiling. The hunter was about to touch the stone egg when he suddenly fell. He cried out as the hunter deftly flipped midair, shifting to an upright position and landing near the lake's surface, unexpectedly changing direction and circling it. Yubai then glanced at Feiyu, and seeing no sign of surprise on her face, he swallowed silently. A moment later, the hunter flew in front of Feiyu and respectfully crossed his arms, reporting to the chief, "The data matches." "Yes." Feiyu glanced at the stone egg in the center of the cave ceiling. The liquid threads that had been drawn out had clung to the smooth, round surface. The other stone eggs also only shone, with no fine beads leaching out. Chapter 333 Goddess of Luck. Feiyu glanced across the lake again, then turned her head to see Yubai, bewildered but composed enough not to yell. The other person in the corridor was different. Instructor, Yugua's eyes and nose were revealed as the fusiform membrane barrel opened, and he began to call out in panic, "Instructor, what's going on?" Feiyu ignored him, moving her fingers slightly as she reported, "Spring hole number 9 has been affected by the rain, and the water level has risen above the ground." Lotion dripped from the cave ceiling and was caught by student Yugua, preventing it from falling into the spring. A new water jade was lost. The spring overflowed this time, carrying no water jade. The observation data from the course assistant, the student hunter, and the instructor are consistent. The spring water hasn't receded, so we suggest the observation station follow-up. Got it? Feiyu raised her head, her eyes glancing past Yubai, then fixed on Yugua, and spoke. "This place isn't on your designated route," she said in a low voice. Yagua was still frightened. The burly man dropped his hands. The hunter robot had already returned to its original position and stood to the side. He didn't dare move, and his voice became quieter. "I took the wrong path. I can't understand the map." Feiyu silently stared at the burly man, feeling a silent sympathy for someone who seemed to share her own limitations. But the rules remained unchanged. "You haven't completed your classwork," she pronounced. "I suggest you take a few more walking training classes. Do you agree?" "I agree," Feiyu nodded, appreciating Yagua's cooperation. "Then you can only withdraw now. Let the robot take you to the chariot to calm down." Yagua said yes, and was immediately engulfed by the hunter beside him, spinning into a shuttle barrel and swirling into the depths of the corridor. The sight made Yubai glance at the hunter close to him. He turned back to see Feiyu staring at him. "Let's go." She tilted her head, indicating that he should lead the way. Yubai bowed and led the way. Feiyu followed, and after a while, she concluded that this captain really knew the way. They had passed through many forking caves on the way here, and he had made no mistakes on the way back. They didn't say much along the way. Yubai led the way at a very appropriate pace, not stopping too often, but not rushing at all. When he encountered a steep bend, he would turn back to call the instructor and remind him to be careful. They twisted and turned again for half a step. The hunter robot took a few silent steps and cut in front of Yubai. Yubai turned his head and looked at Feiyu. Just then, a hissing sound arose nearby. After a while, it became louder and louder, and finally turned into a sharp whistle, and suddenly disappeared. The process was so fast that he was full of confusion. "The accumulated water in the next cave is receding," Feiyu said. "So that's how it is." Yubai's expression relaxed, and he glanced at the hunter waiting silently in front of him. He suddenly realized that the hunter had rushed to the front to protect him. "Thank you, instructor, keep going." "Yes." Feiyu carefully studied the environmental feedback in the dim light. After a while, she called to Yubai. "Wait here." She pointed to the fork leading to the next cave. "I'll go take a look and be back soon." "Okay." Yubai stopped immediately. Feiyu led a hunter into the cave. The air was damp, and the ground was a jumble of stones of varying sizes. As they walked, they could still feel the slippery dampness of the water's recent receding flow. The hunter turned on the emergency light, and she looked up at the ceiling. Unlike the previous spring cave, the ceiling was rough, without the scattered stone eggs. Feiyu followed the environmental feedback and turned around a few times. In the gap between the stacked stones, she saw a small, round ball emitting a warm, glowing light. Her eyes lit up, and she told the hunter to pick it up, looking down at it. The ball was as big as her fist. The water jade mother seed egg on the roof of spring number 9 had a textured surface from the emulsion dripping and bouncing back. Yet, This water jade, soaked in underground spring water for who knows how long, remained translucent and flawless. The light from the emergency lights shone into it and reflected back, creating a dreamy, soft glow around the water jade. Feiyu couldn't believe she'd been so lucky to find a mature water jade while simply teaching a class. She instructed the hunter to patrol again, but nothing else was found. She marked the area on the karst cave map and notified the nearby observation station, newly marked spring number 13, Motherless Spring Cave. After the water receded, a water jade was found. Please turn it in and follow up. Okay, Lady Luck. Feiyu smiled faintly and told the hunter to follow her out of the cave. Bai remained standing at the fork in the cave. Instructor, he called, noticing the glint of light emanating from the hunter's fist, but docilely didn't ask. Feiyu asked the hunter to open his palm. Bai exclaimed in amazement, then asked, "What is this?" "It looks beautiful, water jade, a kind of mineral," Feiyu said casually. She raised her eyes to look at Bai's face in the light and shadow, then asked the hunter to close his palm. "This mineral has nothing to do with your course. You don't have to tell your teammates when you go back. I won't tell you, please rest assured," Bai said immediately. Feiyu nodded and instructed the hunter, "Go." The hunter bowed. "Yes, sir." He turned and walked forward, and soon disappeared. Only Feiyu, Bai, and the two hunters were left at the scene. "Let's go." Feiyu raised her foot, and Bai followed. "I read the rules and regulations," he smiled a little embarrassedly. "I recited the field regulations twice." "Huh?" Feiyu glanced over. "Have you forgotten? The class you taught, the field safety class. You told us to read the rules and regulations," Bai recited. "Things that occur during field activities shouldn't be discussed with anyone outside the organization. Feiyu isn't involved in confidential matters, but you're still in training. Just focus on your own progress," Feiyu said calmly. "Were you also in my last theory class? All of us in Team 27 took your last class." Bai half sidestepped, walking near Feiyu, and spoke in detail with a touch of flattery. "So, instructor, you're giving us another field training class this time. We're all very happy. But during the last class, we were organized by community. Back then, there were no divisions, the corridor was silent, with only the sound of two footsteps. Two close-fitting hunters, one leading the way, the other holding the line, their footsteps so light they seemed to glide on water, practically inaudible. Feiyu had programmed them to remain silent unless they had to report something. They were incredibly discreet bodyguards." Feiyu casually asked, "How are the captains chosen?" "Oh, they're chosen by the higher-ups when we're splitting up the teams," Bai said nonchalantly, though with a hint of humility. Feiyu thought, indeed, given his class performance, if we were to pick the tallest from the short ones, he'd be the obvious choice. "What was the reason you came in just now?" "Oh," Bai paused, as if he didn't quite understand. Chapter 334 There is room for improvement. Feiyu thought Bai looked very stupid. Why did he stop? "Keep going," she frowned slightly. If they had to stop to communicate even when asking a question, wouldn't it affect their efficiency when asking them to work in the future? She started walking and repeated casually, "You have already completed your class assignments. Why did you come here?" "Because I am the captain of Team 27, and Yaogui is my brother in the team." Bai looked at Feiyu. "The rules and regulations say that the captain has the responsibility to take care of the team members. You forgot one thing when you followed me." "What is it?" Bai was a little nervous. "You are the captain. When you act separately from the team members, you must give some instructions," Feiyu said calmly. "I told them to stay where they are." "That's what I said. You must at least tell your deputy captain to take over the captain's management responsibilities in your absence." "Is there a deputy captain?" "Yes, it's Tilian, the second student who just came out," Bai said, suddenly bowed, and said seriously, "Thank you for the guidance, instructor." There was a noise in the front. It sounded that the students waiting in the exit cave were chatting happily. Feiyu glanced at Bai and said nothing more. Bai looked at Feiyu again. Of course, he also heard the noise. He walked silently for the last part of the way. When they reached the exit of the corridor, their eyes met. He immediately stepped aside and stuck to the wall of the corridor to let Feiyu go first. Feiyu went straight into the number 1 cave. No one noticed her at the inner entrance. The entire cavern was buzzing with activity. Sunlight streamed through the outer entrance, illuminating half the chamber with a bright, clear glow. With the rain receding, the students had more rocks to choose from, now clustered in groups of 3 or 5, their expressions revealing a lively conversation. The hunters surrounding each one were like invisible robots, silent, motionless, and expressionless, seemingly embedded in the stone walls, perfectly executing Fei's orders to silently protect them. The students should have all returned. Fei's absence seemed like enough time for them to become accustomed to the cavern and its dense throng of hunters. Their whispered conversations intersected, dispersed, and reflected throughout the cavern, creating a harmonious atmosphere that perfectly suited the beautiful weather. Yubai glanced at Fei, his throat tightening, not daring to cough even once. Finally, Fei's own hunter couldn't stand it anymore and spoke on behalf of the chief supervisor. "The instructor is back." The buzzing ceased. Many people turned their heads to look at the inner cave entrance, pushed against the rocks with a bang, turned around, and jumped down in a panic, looking at each other. Whether it was spontaneous or imitating, they all gathered together with a confused look on their faces. But because there were many rocks in the cave, they couldn't even form a formation. They stood at different heights, sometimes east, sometimes west, and barely settled in the cracks of the rocks, all looking at Fei's. The cave was completely silent for 3 minutes. "You returned to the team." Fei's tilted her head slightly. Yubai responded in a low voice and moved immediately. He looked at his brothers, and without much hesitation, he found a sparsely populated space to stand and even out the density. When he looked up, he saw Fei's eyes following him. "Is this the formation you usually gather in?" "No," he answered with a stiff face, looked around quickly, found a place for himself, and waved his hand to tell his brothers to line up quickly. There were still a lot of stones, and no one said a word. They moved closer to each other quickly, and it was inevitable that the stones would be higher or lower. Everyone put away their previous happy expressions and stood solemnly. Feiyu still said nothing, raised her finger, and tapped it slightly. The hunters who were clinging to the wall of the cave moved dizzyingly, and in less than 2 seconds, they lined up next to Team 27 where the stones were even more cluttered. On the stone surface and in the cracks of the stone, each of them stood upright, as if there was a large flat ground under their feet. "I don't want to say that you don't stand as well as robots, but it is true," Feiyu said expressionlessly. "The behavior of robots is based on human standards. In other words, once people start comparing themselves with robots, they are actually comparing themselves with the standards they should be able to achieve. Please remember this, you still have enough room to improve from the standard." Her eyes swept over the 2 rows of silent people. "Since I came back, no one has asked me about Yaogua. Have you noticed? Yaogua's not here." Her voice grew colder. "Who is Yaogua?" "Yaogua is your companion." "Who mentioned Yaogua in the casual conversation just now?" "Raise your hand." The 2 rows of people fell silent, secretly exchanging glances, and finally 7 or 8 hands came together. Feiyu glanced at them quietly, her tone still flat. "I'm assuming that one person speaks, 1 or 2 people listen, so while you were waiting, you were concerned about your companions. I'm very pleased with this. You possess the most basic humanistic spirit of a team. Continue to possess this spirit, so that in truly dangerous situations, you can comfort each other. Today is a class, and it has nothing to do with a dangerous environment. These caves and your routes were all designed in advance to create an environment that appears dangerous but is actually completely safe, specifically for your experience," Feiyu said word by word. "But this is no reason for you to relax after the course is completed. Do you fully understand the geography and climate here? You all gathered in a cave to wait, but you didn't organize any warning or protection. If it suddenly rained again, would you all be drowned? As luck would have it, the sun outside the cave disappeared as soon as Feiyu finished speaking, and darkness suddenly fell. There was a rumble of thunder. Feiyu glanced outside the cave, ready to say nothing. She glanced at a pile of leaves on the ground not far away. "Everyone take your own marker," she emphasized again. "Return to the Poseidon chariot." As she walked out of the cave, she heard the whirring of figures behind her. "Iron chain, you dead chain, which piece do you have?" someone whispered angrily. "You told me to put it on the ground." "Hey, don't mess up the order, this piece looks like it's mine." Feiyu didn't even want to shake her head. What was the point of wasting energy? She let the hunter do the last part. Taking care of your mission items is basic professional ethics. The hunter, who loved to imitate Feiyu, didn't want to adjust his tone when speaking. Keeping a moderate voice for everyone to hear, he said calmly, "The situation has changed. Everyone hurry up. If you can't catch the car, stay here. When she got to the Poseidon chariot, Feiyu noticed two things. When these people saw her, they were a little afraid to surround her. As soon as the hunter said, "It's time to officially hand in your homework," these people pinched a leaf, as if trying to make out a flower, and were hesitant when handing it in. As expected, many people took the wrong leaf without even noticing, but were rejected by the hunter. They had no choice but to wait on the side, whispering with others about comparing and negotiating exchanges. Feiyu's surroundings were like a small market, but everyone was holding their throats as they traded, and the atmosphere was very oppressive. She sat calmly in her chair without a word. If anyone failed to get the right leaf after more than 2 attempts, she would give them a sideways glance, which would make the burly man hold his breath. Feiyu had a ranking list in mind. Those who needed to be exchanged frequently could only be given a medium or low basic score. This was because she heard that this group was her old students, so she gave them extra favors. There was another thing. She noticed that Yaoguo, who had no leaves, had a silly smile on his face. When the rest of Team 27 got on the Poseidon chariot, the first thing they looked at was her, and the second they looked at Yaoguo. Although everyone was handing in their homework, no one missed a chance to check on the cheats. For this, Feiyu secretly praised them. It seemed that these people did have the concept of companions. If one day she really sent these people to go to the sea with her, and they were lost in some corner of the sea cave, they could help her find it. Signals in the deep sea are always a problem. Feiyu regained her concentration and stopped thinking about her own work during class. Did they say goodbye after class? No. Feiyu followed the Poseidon chariot and handed the team back to the Shilin protective shield. She felt that it was troublesome to enter the shield for inspection, and there was nothing wrong with entering the shield. It was still early for Shuangtanan to get off work, so she went home. Chapter 335 There's surplus food at home. Thunderstorms are commonplace at the beginning of spring. Dark clouds were already rolling over the Abyss Valley. Taking advantage of the fact that Tongkao Fortress had not yet issued a no-fly zone around Shilin, Feiyu turned her dirt bike around and headed for her home. Minister Jin was a kind person. He didn't need her to do anything in the afternoon, letting her arrange things as she pleased. Feiyu flew over the Qianping Mountains, where she had just taken a class, and entered the Wao Plain. The dark clouds that had covered the sky and the sun no longer chased her. Suddenly, she felt refreshed. She saw only blue sky and white clouds, and the rivers and lakes on the ground were like white silk, a scene of leisurely world. Their Wao spring was more lush and bright than Shilin. Feiyu arrived at her home. She didn't need to work in the fields today. All the spring seedlings had been planted some time ago, and now she just had to wait for them to grow on their own. She had half a day off, and since the sun was good and warm, she went to the courtyard veranda. The wide wooden bench made by Shuangtanan was just right for sitting and basking in the sun. From the woods on the other side of the Huangji River behind the house, 1 or 2 bird chirps were heard. When they reached the courtyard, the sound seemed to dance in the sunlight. The non-dancing moments became even quieter. Midday in spring makes people want to sleep in. Fixa grabbed a thin blanket that she had recently been given, put it on her body, and simply slept in the sun to make up for the fatigue of the recent period. When Shuangtanan came back, the house was unusually quiet. He exclaimed, walked through the main building, crossed a long courtyard, and saw Feiyu at once, and his steps paused. Shangyan was standing against the wall at the door of its maintenance room, waving at him, shivering and not daring to move. It must be that Feiyu didn't allow it to wander around. He smiled and walked lighter. When he reached the center of the courtyard, Feiyu opened her closed eyes and stared at him. Shuangtanan stopped. He knew Feiyu's expression very well. When they used to live in the dome house, she was always so dull when she woke up. "You're back," Feiyu greeted subconsciously. "Yes," Shuangtanan said in a gentle voice, standing in the sun with a smile. "Be careful not to catch a cold. Go back to your room and have a good sleep." Feiyu squinted at the sky, then looked back at Shuangtanan. He looked a little dirty, with mud spots on his boots and pants. "Why are you back so early? What's your errand today?" She sat up, pulled the blanket to her knees, and took the initiative to give up half of the wide wooden bench. "I won't sit." Shuangtanan walked to the bottom of the veranda steps, smiled and waved his hand. "I was setting up the experimental site today, and I didn't go back to Shilin. I came back directly." Oh, Feiyu thought, it was right not to wait for Shuangtanan to get off work in Shilin, otherwise it would be a waste of time. "How was your class today? Are you tired?" Not tired at all. Feiyu paused for a moment and complained, "Those people have poor manners." "Why not?" Shang Tenin laughed. "Talkative, generally, vulgar." Shang Tenin was startled, and took another step forward, standing at the foot of the stairs. "They chat whenever they have free time." He couldn't help laughing, and mourned for those big men he had never met before. This really didn't please her. They probably just arrived, and everything they see is new to them. Feiyu shook her head, not wanting to comment anymore. After class, they would be irrelevant people anyway. She looked Shang Tenin up and down, frowning. "Isn't it difficult to build an experimental field? It requires a variety of terrain environments. I tried it with a manned robot today." Shang Tenin looked down at himself and smiled. "It's a little dirty. Can you bury it? The machine is still in the trial production stage. You'd better not try too dangerous an environment. Besides, the experimental field hasn't been built yet. If the protective measures are not in place, it would be bad if you get hurt," Feiyu said with concern. "I haven't been testing the machine all the time," Shang Tenin said lightly, not caring that he had been rolling around in that machine for a whole day. "Qianshan also went with me today and helped me test it. But he's new here and hasn't completed his departmental internship training yet, so I just let him get on the machine to experience it a little bit. He's new here, so just recommend him to your project team." Feiyu glanced at Shang Tenin and said quickly, "Is it easy to use?" "I know Qianshan's strength. Before he came to the Alliance, he had already done some research on manned robots. Joining the #1 project team is just right to add help with the external components." "Oh," Shang Tenin said. "Okay, that's good. No need to worry about it." Feiyu nodded. "Do you want to change?" "Go ahead." "Well, then, you rest a little longer. We're all back early today, so I'll cook dinner later." Shang Tenin pointed to the pantry. "I saw a recipe for radish in this issue of the Star News. It just so happens we have some radish left at home from last season, so we don't need them for seedlings anymore." The Luoyang Star News is now adding more interesting sections, with the logistics and supplies department taking up one. Each issue recently features recipes using locally developed ingredients, encouraging everyone to try them. Feedback on cooking records will earn discounts on meal orders, making the logistics and supplies department very popular. Minister Jin of the non-human department has also been racking his brains to apply for a permanent space in the Star News, ideally to feature interactive activities between the non-human department and the general public to build momentum for the department. No mistakes, just one post, one content, one forum, one book, one forum. After the Second Legion landed and a few months of initial adaptation, the Chuxi will return to port on June's Homecoming Festival. A new batch of information will be brought back to the Alliance, including every issue of the Luoyang Star newspaper. Minister Jin regrets assigning the professional technicians a soft branding opportunity in the widely read Star newspaper. He's recently instructed Neonor to contact the Star newspaper to showcase the non-human division in the issues surrounding Homecoming Festival, lest they appear too low-key. Neonor recently launched a brainstorming session, and Feiyu casually suggested two ideas: a free one-day tour of the Wishi Wheelie Peninsula, or a tide-catching event at Ben Pangay. It's said that Minister Jin actually evaluated it and ultimately ruled it out, citing their limited staff and lack of reception staff. Minister Jin is trying to emulate the logistics department's effortless strategy of creating an impression with just a menu. It's said that the next issue of the Star newspaper will feature a view of the Wishi Wheelie coast, placed on the opposite page from the menu. I also heard that many departments have recommended their work-style photos to the Star newspaper, so there are extra issues in every issue of the Star newspaper until the Homecoming Festival. It seems that Luo Wang's life is becoming more and more colorful. The Planetary Management Department of the Capital Star can rest assured. Feiyu doesn't care about these things. She calculated that there is still half a basket of last season's wild gourd at home. Yu Qianshan came to visit her home earlier, and Shang Tenin ordered too much food from the Shilin community canteen, leaving 1 or 2 items left over. The next day, she used the manual stove in the kitchen and her own stored grain to cook a meal. The two of them ate wild gourd with the dishes from the canteen, and they enjoyed it very much. There is still some wild gourd left, and it needs to be eaten. It would be a pity to waste it, because there will be new food in the new season. What should we go with? A radish, side dishes? Shang Tenin answered quickly, but couldn't name them for a moment. He just smiled. There are too many. Take a look for yourself. I ordered them from our community service center when I got off work. They should be here soon. Feiyu raised her eyebrows. Did you know I got off work early today? She curled her lips into a smile. Is there any need to ask? The off-road vehicle at home is connected to 2 people at the same time, and the driving movements will be notified to him. Since it is so rare that everyone is free, have a big meal and eat the radish by the way. You cook? She still remembered that Xiong Tannen had taken the initiative to ask this before. I'll cook? Xiong Tannen curled his lips. You give me guidance, okay? Feiyu answered straightforwardly. Xiong Tannen laughed. Then I'll go change clothes. Feiyu leaned back on the bench and looked at his back. His gait was still quite brisk. It's good that he didn't get tired. Today, he will try Xiong Tannen's cooking skills. After all, with her around, he can't go wrong. Chapter 336 Old Sister-in-Law. Inside the dome on the east end of the 6th section of the 9th group in Kian community, Shilin Gaoti. Tian jumped up from the single bed. What? I just passed, and I have to make up a class this weekend. He jumped to the ground, ran to the door, and sat down on the threshold. Hey, boss, you, check quickly. The results of our environmental training class today are out. What's your score? Yubai stopped polishing his boots, turned on the communicator, glanced at it, was a little surprised, and shrugged at Tian. Excellent. Why? Tian said aggrievedly. Am I not behind you? I remember clearly that I was second. You are excellent, and I should be considered average. Then do you have any notice of makeup classes on the weekend? No. Yubai continued to polish his boots, thinking, those who are on the passing line have to make up classes. I remember we talked about this at the meeting of our department, saying that we should have strict requirements and improve quality. No, I have to ask them. Tian slapped his knee and stood up. Yubai tried to pull him but failed, and shouted, ask tomorrow. They're all closed and we're resting. It's not curfew yet, Tian said. Thunder rumbled closer. Yubai looked up at the sky and saw a blue-white lightning tearing through the black clouds above the Abyss Valley on the west side, and muffled thunder crackled from it like a frying pan. He retracted his eyes, glanced at Tian who was banging on the door in the yard next door, and shook his head. He's back, he shouted to persuade him. In this kind of weather, the regulations recommend not to walk around casually. The door next door opened, and Tian chatted with him for a while, then turned around and walked down the doorstep angrily. Hey, boss, you, does Tizi really need to make up for the lessons? We don't have this requirement, we are just average or below average, the 2 people next door asked loudly, looking both amused and proud. Really? Why not? Yubai said, a helpless expression on his face, shrugging. He can't go to the community cafeteria this weekend. I see, he can't go see his sister. The person next door whistled a strange sound behind Tian, wailing, that's terrible. Yubai waved quickly at the person next door, and the 2 people laughed and retreated, closing the door. Hey, buddy, we won't tease you anymore. Yubai suppressed a smile. Seeing Tian stride out of the next yard, his head turned west, as if to go to another room, he quickly greeted him, come back. I'll ask you tomorrow. Your grades are down. Can you still run and correct them? You should make time when you come back. Seriously. If you need to clean up this weekend, I'll help you. Tian exhaled toward the main road, turned, and entered his own yard. He thought about it over and over again, but couldn't figure it out. He slumped down on the threshold with Yubai again. Boss, you, why do you think this is happening? I did so well in this class. If I had been given a passing grade in the previous class, I would have found it reasonable. After all, I was a partner with Yaoguzi in the previous class, and our grades were not outstanding. But in the previous class, I got an average grade. In this class, I drilled in the hole so fast, faster than the 2 guys next door. They all got average or below, but I have to go to weekend tutoring with Yaoguzi. Do you think the female teacher didn't see it or something? Tian was talking excitedly when Yubai poked him with an elbow. What's the matter? He stopped in confusion. Yubai frowned and looked at Tian with a smile. You really don't understand. What? Understand what? Tian said in confusion. Don't talk too much. Yubai patted Tian's knee sympathetically. What's wrong with me complaining? I'm taking makeup classes with Yaoguzi. Think about it, according to the rules, if a team member goes to someone else's class for intensive training, people will definitely mistake me for Yaoguzi. If it happens to be a double assignment, needless to say, I have to do it with Yaoguzi again. Won't the grade be bad again? Do I have to take another makeup class? How can I be at peace? Tian grumbled dissatisfiedly. There was a thunderclap, and he was startled. He looked up and suddenly an epiphany came to his mind. He moved closer to Yubai and lowered his voice. You mean, the female instructor thought I talked too much and deliberately suppressed me. I didn't say anything, and if I had to say anything, it wasn't her. You're still talkative, you deserve it. Yubai smiled and pushed Tilian away, patted his boots, stood up and pulled Tilian up. Go back to the house, don't complain. There's no deduction of money or points, and it's another chance to see the outside world. Others can't even think of it. I'm not complaining, I'm just weird. Tilian followed and stepped into the room. He took 2 quick steps and rushed over from behind Yubai. He stared at Yubai with a pair of frightened eyes and asked, I didn't say anything about a female teacher at the time, did I? Did I say it? Yubai was twisted by Tilian and pushed him away without any hesitation. If you wanted to say it, I stopped you in time. After everyone left, you were the only one who talked happily in the cave. Oh, Tilian covered his mouth with regret, turned around and jumped onto the bed, crossed his legs to calm down, and shouted again, but I definitely didn't say my awe of the teacher, right? What right did the old sister-in-law have? Yubai chuckled, sat down on the edge of the bed and straightened the quilt, then raised his head and said seriously, shut up, that's right. Tilian's voice was a little softer, but he still refused to stop. They can't carry anything on their shoulders or hands. It's just that they came a little early with their husbands. Those old sisters-in-law are so arrogant. Last time we visited their community outside, do you remember? You can't step here, you can't step there, there are a lot of rules, but they don't tell us where we can step. Do we need their big house? I do. Yubai continued without hesitation, disrupting the rhythm of Tilian's speech, and he laughed to himself. You don't get up as early as they do, what can you do? Yubai joked, sleep. Don't worry, I'll go to the main cafeteria for you on the weekend and keep an eye on your sister. If I see anyone who is ignorant enough to talk to me, I'll come back and tell you. What do you mean? Well, Tilian reacted, and wanted to throw himself on the bed opposite. What do you mean? You don't have good intentions, no mistakes in one song, one post, one content, one book, one forum. The lights went out with a whoosh, and curfew arrived. Tilian swallowed his words and burrowed into his bed breathlessly. The blue light of lightning continued to tear at the night sky, occasionally piercing into the house. The thunder rumbled and rolled, making people numb. It's raining outside, Tilian said softly. Yes, it's not raining inside. It will be raining tomorrow morning at 5:30, Tilian sneered. If I had known this shabby place was so miserable, I wouldn't have come. I thought it was a selection and training camp. With so many people signing up, they deliberately said it was a little close and eliminated a group first. A chuckle came from the bed next to him. You fool, what do you expect from the desolate planet? It's so desolate, and the management is still strict. Tilian sighed. Go to sleep. Yubai turned over. This was a signal that Boss Yu would not talk late at night. Tilian really shut up and turned over to sleep. Chapter 337 The 4th year of the Hometown Conquest Festival. On the homecoming festival of the 4th year of Luoyang, the Chuxiu returned home as planned. It was a significant day, a day off for all Luoyang residents. Feiyu was at her own farm, looking up at a streak of silver streaks streaking across the sky. She glanced at it once, then looked back. The Chuxiu had carried away another routine inquiry letter from her to the Mom and Asset Custody Agency, but nothing else. The truest parting sorrow was felt by the members of the 2nd Legion. Like them in the 1st year of Luoyang, they silently watched the scene unfold from the small courtyard of the Shilin Community Dome. This day marked the departure of all members of the 2nd Legion, who had left their homes and settled down in Luoyang. Command issued a notice reopening the long-closed Mulala market on the Shilin Highlands. Those from the settlements outside the highlands who wished to buy and sell could freely enter and exit Shilin that afternoon, without presenting a valid reason for entry. This continued at the end of every month. This marked the successful completion of the 2nd Legion's initial adaptation phase in Luoyang. Beyond the usual teaching and tours, newcomers and veterans gradually increased their interactions. By midday, Tongqiao Fortress had never been so crowded. Off-road vehicles, like a swarm of bees, streamed from the 3 settlements of Wao, Rongsan, Rongai, and Shilin, circling the fortress entrance, waiting to enter. A festive atmosphere was brewing. Feiyu was also going to open her own shop. The Shimu family's red scarf initially focused on personalized robot design and simulation, But because Luo Ang's robots were completely distributed and supplied for the first 3 years, her business was largely unsustainable. However, she was reluctant to give up her stall. Whenever she had free time, she and Xiang Tianan would pick up a few machine parts and a momming blanket as a mock-up, then watch over the stall and chat with Feng Situ Huijing and her husband, who ran the stall next door. After she and Xiang Tianan settled in Wao and established their own family seed farm, their stall became more presentable. Every season, Xiang Tianan would fill a basket or two with surplus apples, water chestnuts, and other fruits. He'd often give some away to colleagues and friends he knew, and he'd occasionally receive some in return. It wasn't a loss, and it was quite enjoyable. After the 3 settlements were built, everyone moved out, and it wasn't as convenient as when everyone lived in the dome-shaped community building, where it was easy to visit each other. While visits became less frequent, old friendships were still cherished. The monthly Mulala market became a permanent social gathering place, where everyone would meet in a lively atmosphere, exchange produce, and chat about family matters. The men would sometimes visit the nearby Mulala bar, a traditional way to maintain friendships. It was spring, and the crops were growing well in the fields, but they hadn't yet produced any fruit. But that didn't matter. Feiyu had Xiang Tianan cut a rose grass in full bloom at home and put it in a basket. They were selling flowers today. Whenever they ran into old neighbors or friends, they'd give them flowers. Feiyu was primarily targeting the new arrivals from the Second Legion, especially the girls, figuring they were her selling point. Huh? Feiyu, tidying up her counter, glanced at the stall next door, wondering. The Fang family stall was deserted. Could the Fang couple still be stuck at the Tongqiao fortress, waiting to be admitted? Situ, why haven't you arrived yet? Xiang Tianan had already dialed the video call. Are you setting up a stall today? Do you want us to help clean up your stall first? Oh, I was so busy that I forgot to tell you. We won't be setting up a stall today. Feng Situ's loud voice was heard clearly by Feiyu, who was sitting next to him. Xiaohu and I have something to do. Xiang Tianan saw Feng Situ laughing and smiling, so he also smiled. Okay, then you and sister-in-law are busy. We'll contact each other when we have time later. Hey, hey, hey. Feng Situ snorted 3 times, and after a moment, he lowered his voice and said, I'm telling you something. Feiyu turned her face away, hiding the smile in her eyes. Feng Situ seemed to be unable to keep things to himself. No matter whether people asked or not, he would automatically blurt out things sooner or later. It was quite interesting. I just don't know what news he is going to say now. This matter has not been publicized yet. Listen to it, don't tell anyone else for now. Also give a message to your wife Xiang, don't spread it for now. What is it? Xiang Tianan asked curiously, jokingly. From your perspective, it's a very good thing. It is a very good thing. Feng Situ laughed out loud, then lowered his voice. Do you know why Xiaohu and I can't come to set up the stall today? We are going to visit a family from Rongai. They are pregnant. Not only Xiang Tianan was surprised, but even Feiyu forgot to check the bouquet of flowers placed by Xiang Yan, and turned to stare at Xiang Tianan. Really, it was reported to the hospital a few days ago and confirmed. Lao Chun even came out from Shilin to visit that sister-in-law. Now, Alice, Feng Situ said with a mixture of happiness and embarrassment, our Xiao kicking nursery must follow up the whole process. Originally, Jingjing would have been the most suitable person to take care of her, but Jingjing also has to take care of the girls in Shilin and can't get away for the time being. Besides, Jingjing has been in contact with those people from the Second Legion before. In short, after all, I became the most suitable person. So Lao Chun added an urgent task to me. During this period, I have to follow up and care for that sister-in-law every day. This is our Luo Wang's first child. Do you think it's important? Important? Xiang Tianan was so surprised that he and Feiyu looked at each other unconsciously, not knowing how to respond. The opinion against having children since Shilin landed was eliminated in the family health guidebook last month. Unexpectedly, Luo Wang would welcome a little human life so soon. Hi, Xiang Gad, Feng Situ smiled mischievously. Good luck, Xiang Tianan mumbled a response and hung up the video call. Feng Situ's little kicking nursery school is about to open, Feiyu said. Yes. He must be very happy, finally, he can show his talent. Xiang Tianan smiled at Feiyu's response. The two continued to pack up and set up their stall. Spring in the Mulala Hills was not as warm as the Wowo Plains. The wind blew gently from the pass of the guards' camp, and Brother Kyong's radiance shone down, all of which were sprinkled on the faces of everyone in the market. It was the first market opening since the Second Legion landed, and the weather was pleasant and bustling. Feiyu looked up, satisfied to see the lighted sign above her stall. Above, there was a clear blue sky. They're opening the stall today, she concluded. Ever since she moved out of Shilin and settled in Wao in September of the second year of Luoyang, she had lived without a shield for nearly 2 years. Now, with just one glance, or even just by smelling the air, she could accurately sense whether Shilin's shield was on. Shuang Tanin looked at her, chuckled, and hummed. Everything was repeated according to their adaptation process. Feiyu thought to herself that Yu Qianjun and his group of the Second Legion would adapt to the same situation as them in time. But now, Feiyu could recognize the people of the Second Legion at a glance, whether they were the new guards, the technicians or volunteer workers assigned to various departments, or the new ladies. Regardless of their attire, just looking at their faces, they had that fresh and cautious look, as if they were constantly observing and learning. They had a full sense of being newcomers, which was really different from the first batch of recruits who landed in the first year of Luoyang. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 338, Flower Fairy. Business was slow as usual, but today more people passed by the stall than at any other market before. Feiyu watched the newcomers with great interest, secretly regretting that they were too reserved and didn't even dare to come to the counter to take a closer look at her flowers. Without even asking a question, they just glanced at her and Shuang Tanin lightly, then smiled and greeted her and Shuang Tanin seriously before quickly passing by. Want to buy? She suddenly asked, staring at the group of people who had just approached. The big men were startled, looked at her, then at Shuang Tanin, and apologized without thinking. Sorry, we don't need flowers. Several people hurried away. Shuang Tanin turned his head to look at Feiyu, who was still sitting behind the counter, looking calm, and he couldn't help laughing. I wanted to tell them that they can take their time to look at them if they don't want to buy. Feiyu curled her lips. They ran away before I had a chance to tell them. Oh, Shuang Tanin nodded, pursed his lips, and really wanted to tell her not to scare him. Feiyu thought that the two of them had been guarding a large flower basket for a long time, and they couldn't sell a single bouquet of flowers anyway, so it would be better to let Shuang Tanin get back to work. Do you want to take some flowers to visit your friends? Do you want to go shopping? I'll watch, Shuang Tanin said considerately. I don't want to go, I'll watch. Feiyu was very straightforward. Shuang Tanin also knew her personality, and stood up with a smile. Feiyu began to help him divide some bouquets. While she was busy, Shuang Tanin's video call prompt sounded. Qianjun? Where did you say you were? Shuang Tanin looked outside the stall. We are in the small accessories area. The market here is like this, with many alleys. You can check the map. Our store is called Shimu's Red Scarf, or you can just look up when you get to the small accessories area. Our store sign is red, big, and very eye-catching, he said with a smile. Come over, we are both here. Is Yu Qianjun coming? Feiyu asked after he hung up the video call. Yes, Shuang Tanin said happily. He said he's in the integrated area now and can hardly find his way. Feiyu, idly distributing the bouquets, suddenly thought, when Yu Qianjun leaves later, let's give him one too. He can smell it now, right? Okay, if Qianjun wants. Feiyu then skillfully tied another bouquet with a ribbon and casually asked, are we treating him to dinner today? Oh, Shuang Tanin paused. No, maybe later. It was a bit hasty to apply to take him out of the shelter to our house today. If we could stay at the nearby cafeteria in Shilin community, that would be fine, but we can't go there right now. The 4 dome-shaped communities on Shilin Plateau were still under quarantine. People and vehicles from the 3 settlements outside Shilin were not allowed to approach. Even those like Shuang Tanin, who stayed at Shilin headquarters for work, or those like Feiyu, who sometimes had to return to Shilin to report on their work, had not flown near the airspace of the 4 communities since the Second Legion arrived. As a result, the community cafeteria only accepts their orders, and people from outside the settlement are not allowed to eat in. Then we won't have dinner with Yu Qianjun today, Feiyu confirmed. The two chatted for a few more words. And Shang Tannen glanced outside the shop again and said happily, Qianjin is here. Feiyu also looked outside the shop after hearing that. Qianjin came alone. It had been 2 or 3 months since he had been a guest at her house. He and Shang Tannen saw each other quite often, and this was Feiyu's second time seeing him. She looked at the old classmate coming from afar, with a big smile and big steps. She felt that he seemed much more experienced, probably because he was gradually getting familiar with the new environment of Luoyang. Qianjin, here. Shang Tannen walked out of the shop to greet him. It's not easy to find. Feiyu looked at him and Qianjin hugging and patting each other on the back, thinking that Qianjin was very skilled in this brotherly etiquette among the men in Luoyang. It's easy to find. The name of your store is special. Qianjin turned his head to the shop and saw Feixu's smile grow wider. The name is the longest. Hello, sister-in-law. They were classmates before, and now Feiyu felt a little strange when Qianjin followed the local customs and started calling her sister-in-law. She stood up with a smile. Classmate Yu, how are you recently? Good, good, you too. Shang Tannen looked at the two of them, and didn't know what to say after hearing the two of them address each other again and again. Of course, the suggestion of changing the address should not be made at this time. He had to talk to Feiyu after returning home. He simply grabbed Qianjin and greeted him warmly. Come in and sit down. This won't affect your business, right? There's no business. Shang Tannen laughed. Feiyu and I are just sitting here to watch the fun. Your family sells flowers? Qianjin asked curiously. His eyes fell on the flower basket, then moved to Feiyu, but asked Shang Tannen, did you grow them yourselves? I didn't plant them specially. They grew on their own, and they grew a lot when the weather got warmer. Feiyu said she would cut some to give to her friends. By the way, do you like them? Feiyu just said that if you like, take a bunch and put it in the house when you go back. Here. Qianjin looked at Feiyu. Thank you. But my dormitory is a double room. It's a bit small, and these flowers are so beautiful, and I don't know how to take care of them. Qianjin, why do you think so much? Shang Tannen laughed. Just put them like this when you take them home. They can last for 2 days. You don't need to take care of them. When they dry up, you can throw them away. No mistakes in one poem, one post, one content, one book, one forum. Oh, Qianjin nodded repeatedly. Thank you then. Feiyu showed a standard ladylike smile, and was surprised that Qianjin could say so many polite words for a bouquet of flowers. She listened to Shang Tannen and Qianjin chatting, and most of the time she was diligently watching the shop, occasionally interjecting a word or two. After a while, the crowd outside the shop became more and more, and the owners of other shops were shouting enthusiastically. Qianjin glanced at Feiyu, who was guarding the flower basket, stood up and said, I won't waste your time, it's time to go. Anyway, I recognize the shop. Next time I will bring my friends to patronize my old classmate's shop. Qianjin, don't be busy. Shang Tannen called him, took out the bouquet that Feiyu had tied from the flower basket, and handed one to Qianjin. Don't forget yours. Qianjin pushed it away, took it, and thanked Feiyu again. I'll go with you. Shang Tannen smiled, picking up the other bouquets. It seems my flowers aren't selling well. I'm going to visit a few acquaintances. Feiyu also made some flowers and will deliver them. If you don't have any plans, why not accompany me to finish this errand, and then we can go to the Murala bar for a drink. How about it? Qianjin, have you ever been to that bar? It's very famous. It's in Shilin and the only one in all of Luoyang. Not yet. Then it's a good time to experience it. You don't have other plans later, do you? Shang Tannen inquired. What plans do I have? Qianjin looked from Feiyu to Shang Tannen and joked, if you don't help your sister-in-law watch the shop and sneak out to the bar, won't your sister-in-law scold you? I can watch the shop by myself, Feiyu replied immediately. Let's go. After I deliver the flowers, those acquaintances may want to go too. Let's have some fun together. Shang Tannen patted Qianjin. Qianjin's gaze flickered across Feiyu's face as she stood gracefully beside the flower basket. Very well, he bowed slightly to her. Sister-in-law, goodbye then. Goodbye. Feiyu nodded. Feiyu, I need to call you on the phone. I'll be back to close up shop. Go ahead. Feiyu watched Shang Tannen pick up the flowers and walk out with Qianjin. She thought to herself, she used to think having friends didn't matter, but now, looking at Shang Tannen, having a friend like him was actually a great thing. Look how enthusiastic he was towards Yu Qianjun, taking her on adventures. Chapter 339, Murala Bar. The Murala Bar is a peculiar place. It is the only place in Luoyang that only accepts money, and social contribution points cannot be exchanged here. It is the only place in Luoyang that provides regulated alcohol. If people in Luoyang want to drink, even if they need to entertain guests or hold a banquet, they must report to the Logistics and Materials Department in advance. Here, they can buy it directly. However, each person can only buy one glass. When Xiong Tanin said to drink one glass, he really only wanted to drink one glass. Moreover, after swiping your identity to enter, you will get the same glass as the one the waiter robot brings you, and there is no change in type. Because it gives you the best recommendation based on your physiological health data, Yin Dechen patted Yu Qianjun on the back, took a close look at the color of the glass that Xiong Tanin took from the waiter robot, and laughed. It's over, it's over. Today the most popular brand is still Gra. Yu Qianjun had already lined up in front of the waiter robot, but he didn't know much about alcohol, and was even less sure what Gra was. Although people prefer different kinds of wine, we've figured out some patterns after drinking for so many years. Xiong Tanin smiled, holding up his glass. I'll tell you later. Qianjun, let it recommend something. Yu Qianjun imitated Xiong Tanin's previous behavior, spread out his palm, handed it over, and said, please give me a glass of wine. Okay. The waiter robot stared at him for a moment, turned around and took out a glass of dark wine from the wine cabinet next to him. No need to pay. Mr. Xiong Tanin bought the next 6 glasses of wine. Before Yu Qianjun could react, Yin Dechen and his group standing behind him shouted, Tanin, how can you be so embarrassed? What's there to be embarrassed about? Haven't I eaten you before? Xiong Tanin smiled. Yu Qianjun looked at them and realized that everyone was treating each other. Thanks, Yin Dechen said cheerfully, pointing at Yu Qianjun's glass and teasing, even if you don't tell me the name of this black wine, I know it's definitely Fu Man. Absolutely, absolutely. We all started drinking Fu Man back then, Gu Huaisi said happily. Brother Yu, Fu Man may look scary, but it tastes pretty good. Yu Qianjun smiled and stepped aside to wait with Xiong Tanin for everyone to get their drinks. He looked down at his drink list and saw that it was indeed Fu Man, at 70 star coins a glass. He noticed that except for Xiao Duan, who had met him on the way and was from the propaganda department's culture, sports and variety show division and got a glass of thin milky liquid, everyone else, like Xiong Tanin, got the green, shiny Gara brand. Old Xiao, to be honest, I've been curious about your Fanta wine for several times. Last time I saw your deputy director Xiong drinking this, and it seems that everyone in your department drinks this. Yin Dechen pointed at Xiao Duan's cup and shouted, what does this taste like? Is it delicious? Didn't our boss describe it to you? Your boss told me, Yin Dechen said with a serious face, imitating coldly. You know if you have the structure of my vocal cords. What can I know? As soon as I got home, I asked my Xiao Ahua if she had messed up the tasks assigned by Xiong Jishan recently. Xiao Duan almost spilled the Fanta wine with laughter. He quickly stretched out his palm to protect the rim of the cup, muttering. Although it doesn't taste good, we still can't waste a drop. He then greeted, how is your Xiao Ahua recently? Our boss has been saying that everyone used to work in the headquarters, and Sister Xiao Ahua and others would come to help when they were called. Now they have all gone to the field and can't be called, isn't it? Yin Dechen sighed. Now our boss is hoping that Deputy Director Yu from the manuscript department next door can quickly train another capable assistant so that he can continue to borrow from us, Xiao Duan joked. Yu Manor is said to have said to him, you have my talent, go and train it yourself. Why do you always grab other people's ready-made ones? Our boss is very anxious. Xiao Duan turned to Xiong Tanin and laughed as he spoke. Our boss feels that everyone in our culture, sports and variety department is good at singing and dancing, and Deputy Director Yu is unreliable. A while ago, he was thinking of going to Dr. Fang's family, Principal Hui, and asking her to introduce 1 or 2 good clerical assistants to our department so that we can apply for them. How is it now? Did Mrs. Fang introduce anyone? Xiong Tanin asked. I've introduced more than 1 or 2. Director Hui said that all the ladies from the second corps are good at writing and calculating, and can be of great use. Xiao Duan praised. Director Hui has spared no effort in helping them coordinate with the unit. Xiao Duan saw Yu Qianjun and said a name. Brother Yu, you came here together. Do you know this girl? No. Yu Qianjun shook his head and smiled. Our pre-departure training and on-site adaptation courses were divided into male and female teams. I didn't have much contact with the female team, so I really don't remember their names. Maybe they will feel familiar if we meet. Just like us, we were also trained in male and female teams, Gu Huaisi and the others said. The group chatted and laughed as they took the wine and walked into the inner hall. Yu Qianjun and Shang Tenin were a step behind, so he took the opportunity to ask, "There seem to be specific rules for drinking here." "There aren't any specific rules. Just drink whatever you're given. It depends mainly on your physical condition," Shang Tenin explained. "At the beginning, when we were adapting, we all drank fumen. Later, we could drink other drinks. People like Lao Xiao who needed to protect their throats drank fenba. As for us, although our physiological health data also shows our taste preferences, the bar only offers 2 or 3 types of drinks each time it opens, so personal taste is not a reference indicator for its recommendations. Sometimes we all drink almost the same drink, but fortunately, the main drink is different every time it opens. This time it should be mainly Jela brand, and last time, Shang Tenin recalled, but quickly gave up, I don't remember. Muala Bar is only open on weekends and market days. The last time it opened was at the end of last year. Since you came here, the market and bar have been closed. Today is the first opening day of the year. It's been so long that I can't even remember what the main drink was last time. Do you come here often to drink? Not really. Business at the market stalls isn't good, so I only come here when I have free time, Shang Tenin said, explaining it in more detail to Yu Qianjun. This place is close to the main camp of the guards, so the guards come more often. The merchandise moving around our Muala market has always been quite small, but then a lot of people, after shopping or simply not feeling like it, come here to rest and meet friends. However, the women don't come often, so, on market days, it feels like both men and women have a place to move freely. He raised his chin slightly, motioning Yu Qianjun to look around. The bar, made up of several standard domes, still retained the signs of its makeshift past. There wasn't a single plastic sprayed dividing wall, and all 4 windows were bright, making it more like a large tea house. Groups of men sat or stood, chatting happily, and a low, humming sound filled the bar. Chapter 340 The Taste of Savagery. It was a casual dress day, but many guards officers and conscripts were still in uniform. Yu Qianjun glanced around and saw, as expected, a large number of guards soldiers, even quite a few wearing officers' uniforms with purple flower-sleeved collars. He had previously only had brief encounters with the guards during specific training sessions or field missions. After being assigned to the maintenance division of the Mechanical Management Department, he began rotating shifts at the Tongqiao Fortress Robot Inspection Station, encountering the guards officers on duty there more often. His usual impression of these officers was that they all had sullen faces. But this time was different. Everyone had a smile on their face, not much different from idlers killing time. Yu Qianjun happened to notice 7 or 8 people sitting at a table in a corner. There were a few familiar faces, from other groups in his community whom he had occasionally encountered on his commute. The noise at that table was less boisterous. Everyone sat elegantly, dressed in fresh casual clothes brought from their homeland in the Alliance. The wine glasses arrayed around the table were all black. This made the bar, despite its large number, easily distinguishable. Those in casual attire, drinking black wine respectfully, were almost all from the 2nd Legion. Those still in their work uniforms, yet holding and shaking colorful glasses, were from the 1st Legion, who had arrived in the first year of Luoying. Within the Alliance, when Yu Qianjun was recruited, these individuals were hailed by Alliance officials and the public alike as Luoyang's vanguard, forerunners, and first warriors, role models and predecessors for all who aspired to participate in Luoyang's endeavors. Yu Qianjun quickly glanced at the other people in the bar, dressed in casual clothes. They were easily distinguishable from the people from his community. They were also dressed in casual attire, laughing and joking cheerfully, their clothing, both in color and material, clearly reflecting the characteristics of several fiber plants native to Luoyang. Yu Qianjun glanced at Shang Tenin. The brown linen clothes on Shang Tenin still made this old classmate look capable and elegant. Several people found a table and sat down. After a brief conversation, Yin Dechen, Xiao Duan and others picked up their wine glasses and went to greet other acquaintances. Tenin, Yu Qianjun waited until they were farther away, leaned slightly towards Shang Tenin, and asked softly, "The taller one is Mr. Yin, the shorter one is Mr. Gu, Or did I remember it wrong? No, it's right, Shang Tanin smiled. The one with brown hair is Director Mo, and his official position is in the Festival Affairs Department of the Calendar Department. Yes, Shang Tanin looked at Yu Qianjun, not knowing what he was asking. Everyone's been treating each other to drinks, Yu Qianjun said frankly. I'm afraid next time we meet, they'll recognize me and drink with them, and then I'll turn around and get their name wrong. How embarrassing, Shang Tanin couldn't help but laugh, but he also knew that Yu Qianjun was new and was trying his best to fit in with the personnel work, so he patted the back of his hand and said, "It's okay. You have such a good memory. Don't worry too much about these things. You'll get used to it the first time. In fact, we all had this problem at the beginning, more or less. No one will be surprised." He took a sip of his wine, and the memory made him curl his lips. "I'll teach you a trick of the brothel. She usually waits for others to speak first." Yu Qianjun glanced at Shang Tanin, laughed too, and took a sip from his black wine glass. Fumin tasted very similar to high-energy nutrient solution, with a little more spiciness. "How is it?" Shang Tanin asked. "Not bad," Yu Qianjun nodded. The small door of the bar faced him. People kept coming in. Yu Qianjun casually cast a glance over and saw another group of people coming in. They were all wearing brand new casual clothes, not luobuma at first glance. They looked like new clothes that had been dug out from the bottom of a suitcase that had not been opened for a long time. Yu Qianjun couldn't help but take a closer look. There were 2 or 3 people with particularly burly figures. He immediately remembered that they had formed a team in the previous training. Shang Tanin followed his gaze and looked back. He saw that the large group of men were talking in low voices in front of the waiter robot and glancing around the bar. It was obvious that they were not yet clear about how to buy alcohol in the bar. "An acquaintance?" he asked Yu Qianjun. "They look a little familiar." "They should be from Caring Community," Yu Qianjun replied. "Then they are most likely from the Engineering Support Department," Shang Tanin said casually. "Yes, Qianjun, Deputy Director Pham from your maintenance department met me in a meeting yesterday. He said that you performed very well during your rotation at Tongqiao Fortress." "Oh?" Yu Qianjun couldn't help but sit up straighter and asked with a smile, "Really? Did Deputy Director Pham say anything else?" "He said that you've become familiar with the work very quickly and no longer need your old colleagues to train you. He plans to end your internship early and arrange for you to rotate normally like your old colleagues. You may have to rotate on holidays and night shifts, which will be more tiring." Yu Qianjun smiled. "What's so hard about that? It's the same for everyone, isn't it? The number of people on duty on holidays and night shifts will be slightly smaller. If there's an emergency, the response will be required to be extremely fast. It's very relaxing when there is nothing to do. Just be mentally prepared, no mistakes in the poem, post, content, book, forum." Yu Qianjun nodded, twirling his wine glass with his fingers, and asked, "Tanin, how is your manned robot project going? Is it going smoothly?" He had not been called to the experimental field since he started his internship at the Tongqiao Fortress Robot Inspection Station. "Smoothly, information exchange regarding project progress is strictly governed by personnel levels. Since Yu Qianjun had been requested by Shang Tanin to join Project Team 1 as a structural maintenance assistant, Shang Tanin hesitated to elaborate on the latest progress. Just a few months ago, when Luo Weng Planet's first fully operational prototype was built, Team Member 1 Ling Guang, the chief administrator of the Guard's auxiliary forces, despite his close ties with Qi Changgong, Gu Jek, and the others, didn't casually disclose to Qi Changgong and the others that the operational verification had been completed until the official disclosure at the compliance meeting. "Our mechanical management department seems to be constantly short-staffed," Shang Tanin said. Changing the subject. Yesterday's departmental work meeting addressed this very issue. The manned robot project is about to enter the large-scale pilot phase, and the mechanical management department must maintain current routine operations while devoting significant manpower and energy to this new robot series. Fan Yaoshan of the maintenance department is now eager for all the new engineers to take on independent roles, freeing up the experienced ones to learn the new models. Shang Tanin also sincerely hoped that Yu Qianjun could complete all the steps of the apprenticeship as soon as possible so that he could participate in the structural design of the subsequent new model series. However, talking too much about work while drinking is not a conscience-building thing. He looked at his old classmate and asked with concern, "Qianjun, how are you living in Qinghai community? You will be getting busier and busier in the future. Are you used to the arrangement of life and work? We are rough and unsophisticated people, so what's there to be uncomfortable with? That's right, Shang Tanin smiled. Chapter 341 The Red Scarf of the Shimu Family. You guys had it pretty hard back then. Yu Qianjun continued to twirl his wine glass slowly, his eyes half closed. These domes aren't big. Yeah, Shang Tanin thought briefly, sighing. You're much better off now. Qingyuan community is like a garden. When we lived there before, we were in the middle of a wasteland, you and our top students from Department A, living in the wasteland, doing everything yourself. Yu Qianjun sipped his wine, his eyes curious. How can that be exaggerated? Did the mechanical management department also issue robots? As they chatted, the group of men at the bar entrance finally bought their drinks and walked in, each holding a black wine glass, looking for a seat. This stuff isn't cheap, there's nothing else yet, a few people grumbled as they happened to pass by the table, and Yu Qianjun glanced up. They looked at him, then at Shang Tanin, and walked away. We all thought so back then, Shang Tanin said to Yu Qianjun. Then we realized everything else had been distributed, and this was the only thing we could spend money on, so we all understood. Is that so? You don't even have to spend money on your sister-in-law, Yu Qianjun said, coughing twice and taking another sip of wine. I mean, the market seems to sell all sorts of colorful things, and don't they cost money? I see some are priced in star coins and some in points. Qianjun, Shang Tanin nodded at Yu Qianjun's glass. Drink slowly, otherwise you'll soon find yourself holding an empty glass. Mueller Bar only collects glasses when you leave. This is all our experience, he half talked, half instructed, his eyes smiling, but a hint of embarrassment still slipped through. He slowly replied to Yu Qianjun's earlier question with these words. The market sells things for star coins or points. We don't usually buy much, and even if we do buy some souvenirs, it doesn't cost much. Yu Qianjun glanced at him, his lips raised in a teasing manner, and clinked his glasses. Shang Tanin smiled and took a sip of his Gras brand. Seeing that Yu Qianjun didn't continue talking about spending money on Feiyu, he secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Yu Qianjun's gaze drifted away and saw that the group of volunteer workers from the Qin community had found a secluded corner and were chatting at their own table. They were slightly closer to the technicians from the Qingyuan community at another table, but they didn't rub shoulders. He met eyes with the familiar faces at both tables, and they smiled and nodded at each other. They were all newcomers, more engaged in conversation than conversation in this bustling bar. They were all technicians and volunteer workers from the 2nd Legion, responding to the call for recruitment. Of course, now, today, they, along with the advanced troops from the 1st Legion, were collectively known as the Luoyang Legion, all building a new home on the planet Luoyang. All of them were successfully dispersed to work within the 16 divisions of Luoyang. However, the awkward position of the 2nd Legion's technicians was perhaps similar to Yu Qianjun's current position. They possessed the same academic qualifications and skills as the first batch of recruits, and their importance to construction and potential value are comparable. However, the timing of their arrival dictated a stratification of authority and experience. The 2nd Legion's technicians were also of higher rank than the volunteer laborers who arrived with them. The division of labor in this new world quickly alienated the friendships they had hastily forged during training and long journeys. There was no way around it, time naturally and slowly progressed. Yu Qianjun silently took a sip of his wine. Shang Tanin heard a boisterous greeting from another place. Brother Fu, what a rare visitor. Aren't you supposed to accompany Sister Fu to the market? He turned and saw it was his former instructor, Fu Yuang, who had been booed by a group of guards upon entering the bar. Can't I come check on my old brother? Feng Fu Iong's voice boomed, the very image of a man in high spirits on a happy occasion. Look at it, maybe Afu's wife doesn't want you to stay with her, so you've been relegated to the bar again and have to make do with us. Shang Tanin looked at Feng Fu Iong, trapped in the crowd and being deliberately ridiculed, and raised his glass to toast him from afar. Feng Fu Iong, at the door, bowed to the bar, causing most of the bar to burst into laughter. Only a few newcomers, not quite understanding the situation, watched curiously. Qianjun, that's the rotating defense commander of Tongqiao Fortress. You've been in Tongqiao a lot lately. Have you seen him? Shang Tanin turned around and explained to Yu Qianjun. Yu Qianjun looked at the officer in the purple flowered sleeves. Commander Feng. Yes, he's getting married soon. Shang Tanin laughed again. Feng Fu Iong was almost begging for mercy from the guard's constant barking. Wait until he gets out, and then we'll go have a drink." In the afternoon, Feiyu was guarding the shop. Over the past few years, she'd always wanted to hone her business skills, so she'd been reluctant to let go of the shop. While she still struggled with soliciting customers, her shopkeeping skills had definitely improved over the years. She could now calmly plan her work behind the counter while still being able to detect potential customers passing by. Today, despite the bustle, potential customers were scarce. The small accessories section wasn't as popular as the general section. Newcomers probably didn't realize that the small accessories section sold everything, and even featured machine parts. Back when Xiang Tianan was there, it was peak season. Whether buying or not, people would always glance outside her shop. Shortly after he left, not only did the peak pass, but many people simply glanced and left. Perhaps it was because the flowers were wilting quickly in the sun, so they weren't looking very good. No mistakes, no. It was all her fault. She left Xiongyan too soon, not waiting for it to prepare the fresh keeping water, and not allowing it to nag Xiang Tianan. Feiyu didn't care. Anyway, there were a lot of flowers in the backyard of her house. Except for Xiang Tianan cutting a few branches from time to time and putting them on the kitchen table, most of the time these flowers would bloom and wither on their own, and they would just wither away naturally. No one would specifically exchange them for money. Besides, if they couldn't sell them, they could take them home and put a bunch in the kitchen, and a bunch in her and Xiang Tianan's bedrooms. They would last a day and wouldn't be wasted. She spent most of the afternoon sitting in the shop owner's seat, finishing a trial operation report for the Level 5 observation station on the Benpanghakis Ridge. She thought it was time to take a break. It was already dusk, and the setting sun was creeping over the edge of her flower basket. The Fang family shop next door was closed, and the other neighbor sold specialty candies sent from their hometown today. Business was so good that they sold out and closed the stall an hour ago. Feiyu stood up, gathered the half-wilted rose flowers, and expertly logged into the market system, changing the closing price. The shop signs overhead instantly burst into a vibrant, colorful glow, swirling around in circles. "Xiong madam, are you lowering the price?" The stall owner from the next store under the Fang families immediately leaned forward and called out. "Yes. The flowers can't hold on any longer." After years of stall management experience, Feiyu knew that lowering her own prices might affect the surrounding shops, so she needed to inform them and give a reason. "Then I have to get ready. I can't leave. People are going to be coming to our place soon," the stall owner said with a smile. "Xiong madam, I'll lower my prices in half an hour too, to try to keep customers in our alley. Today I'm selling melons left over from last season. They're also fresh and can be discounted significantly." "Okay," Feiyu smiled faintly, accepting the offer. "Brother, this means there's a big discount," a girl said from a dozen meters away. The red headscarf of the Shimu family. The man looked up and read slowly. Chapter 342 Absence of Consent. "There's a flower vendor there?" the girl asked curiously. "Do you like them? If you do, why not buy a few and put them in the dorm?" the man said. "No, there's only 2 of us living in the dorm, and adding more things might not be enough for everyone. A bouquet of flowers is nothing." "Let's take a look." The man approached the shop. "Sister-in-law, how about these flowers?" Feiyu was folding the thin blanket draped over the back of a chair and gathering the items she had brought when she turned around at the sound. A man and a woman were standing outside the shop. She was about to smile as usual, but her eyes froze, and she was stunned for a moment. The man was also surprised, and he swallowed his words halfway, but he calmed down earlier than Feiyu. After a moment of silence, he said, "Cousin, long time no see." "Cousin." The girl next to him stared at Feiyu, her eyes a little nervous. "Yan Qingjin and Yan Qingxi." Feiyu's eyes gradually calmed down from the initial shock, and she scanned the two of them expressionlessly. The brother and sister were a little different from her old impression. Yan Qingjin was wearing a formal suit that was neither high-end nor low-end, and his hair was the same length as a newlywed. Yan Qingxi was wearing a silk satin dress with a very unique cut, which made her look very graceful. The stale and dilapidated atmosphere of the small town of Faxing that once enveloped them was no longer visible, so it was no wonder that she didn't recognize it at first. Brother Kaiong's pale pink light was sprinkled outside the shop, and the outline of the green hills of Mulila stretched softly in the distance, but Feiyu had a moment of extreme unreality. "Cousin, what a coincidence today," Yan Qingjin spoke, breaking the silence. His voice was mellow, powerful, and polite. "Is my brother-in-law not here? Are you here looking for me, or for my husband? Feiyu's tone was very flat. Yan Qingjin didn't answer immediately. Yan Qingxi's dark almond-shaped eyes turned to Feiyu and she whispered, "Cousin, we're on vacation today and happened to come here." Feiyu looked at her, then turned her gaze to Yan Qingjin's face. Their eyes met. Yan Qingjin narrowed his eyes slightly, then raised them again with a somewhat calm smile. "Cousin, I didn't expect to come across your shop today while shopping with my sister." He looked inside the shop and asked, "What kind of business do you do, cousin? Is your business booming? I remember I told you that there's no need for nonsense between us." "Let's get straight to the point," Feiyu interrupted. Yan Qingjin smiled and exhaled slowly. He glanced left and right at the alley, then took a step forward with Yan Qingxi, close to the counter. He lowered his head slightly to glance at the flower basket, as if he was selecting goods. Feiyu frowned, paused for a moment, and also stepped forward. If someone looked at them from a distance, they would just think the shopkeeper and the customer were discussing business. Yan Qingjin raised his hand, lightly brushing it a few inches above the rose grass. He glanced up at Feiyu, only to find her staring coldly at him. He smiled faintly. "Cousin, Sissy and I heard Luo Wen could make a living, so we came here too. We had planned to visit you and your husband once we were settled, but by chance, we'd run into you today." His tone was steady. Feiyu didn't respond. Yan Qingjin pursed his lips. "My cousin has always been a straightforward person. So, there's something I was going to tell her when I visited her, but I'll tell her today." "What is it?" "My cousin has been away from home for several years, and she must have missed us terribly. We later learned that before she responded to the call to Luoyang, she specifically requested to visit her family. So when Sissy and I left for this trip, we made a special trip back to Maman. The care center, mindful that we were as far away from home as she was, asked us to come back and visit." Yan Qingjin's voice was gentle. "Just so you can rest assured, everything is fine at home. I've had the robots make sure every corner is spotless." Feiyu firmly pinned herself to the spot. Yan Qingjin's lips remained slightly raised as he glanced at Feiyu. He withdrew his hand from the bouquet, letting it drop to his waist. His back straightened, and he stood tall and straight outside the table. "Of course, cousin, this is not a serious matter." He looked directly at Feiyu's face and continued, "There is an important matter that I must inform you of. I think the hosting center should not have delivered the notice to you yet. After all, the transmission of information between the entire alliance and Luoyang is not so convenient now." "What notice?" Feiyu said coldly. "Cousin, do you still remember that before you came to Luoyang, you not only stayed at home for one night, but also extended our division period to 10 years. I was thinking that since Sissy and I are also here to build Luoyang, it is better to clean up the ancestral property in Mamang as soon as possible. The custody center has agreed to Sissy and my special application and temporarily cancelled the established 10-year division period. We will only wait for the two parties to meet in Luoyang and discuss a feasible time before they will act as our agent for division." "I don't agree." Feiyu raised her head. "I have nothing to discuss with you. We took into account that my cousin must be very busy here in Luoyang and may not have time to take care of these trivial matters," Yan Qingjin said slowly, "so we petitioned the custody center. After Sissy and I arrive in Luoyang, if we have not reached a consensus and report it to the custody center, then it should not be delayed for too long. After all, these trivial matters have been delayed in Maman for a long time, which has caused concerns in the hearts of both of us in Luoyang and affected our work." The custody center agreed to the request of our attorney. "What request?" 7 years. "The 10-year split period is cancelled and is tentatively set at 7 years, Yan Qingjin smiled. "If there is still no consensus within 7 years, the split will be carried out immediately after the 7th year. I'll hire a lawyer. In my absence, the changes made by the custody center will be invalid," Feiyu immediately said. "Cousin," Yan Qingjin smiled, "we also gave our consent before you came to Luoyang. The custody center confirmed that Sissy and I responded to Luoyang's recruitment order, and your consent is also applicable." "Oh, and my brother-in-law, his consent is also applicable." Feiyu's eyes turned cold, and her face became more gloomy. "Cousin, perhaps we can discuss this sometime. If not 10, not 7, what would be the most appropriate number of years?" Yan Qingjin raised an eyebrow. 5, 6, or even 8, 9, that's fine with me. Anything else? Nothing else." "Oh, when the Chuxi returned, I sent a letter to the custody center, informing them that Sissy and I had reached Luoyang. Due to objective conditions, we haven't been able to contact you, and we haven't reached a consensus yet. Feiyu wished her gaze could be as effective as an arrow. It's getting late, cousin. If you don't have any other instructions, Sissy and I won't disturb you, Yan Qingjin said politely, glancing back at the shop with a smile. Goodbye, cousin. Yan Qingxi, who had remained silent, now bowed slightly and offered a gentle salute. Feiyu's gaze shifted from Yan Qingjin to Yan Qingxi, giving them a cold look before she said nothing. Give my and Sissy's regards to my brother-in-law. Yan Qingjin pulled his sister up and looked at Feiyu. He bowed politely before leaving. Luoyang is a great place. Cousin, you're here early. I hope you'll show me some favors in the future. They said their goodbyes. Feiyu watched them, bathed in the pale afterglow of Brother Kaiying's clothes, as they walked to the next shop, smiling and responding to the solicitations from other vendors. They even stopped to look at a shop a little further away, as if they were strolling through the city. Chapter 343, The Woman Who Went to the Bar. Shuang Tianan and his friends sat around a table, chatting happily, but drinking sparingly, with half a glass left in each of them. Yu Qianchen was about to take a sip of wine when he suddenly stopped and looked towards the door of the bar. Oh, Yin Dechen, who was sitting next to him, also looked at the door and blinked twice. He immediately stretched out his hand across half the table and knocked in front of Shuang Tianan. Shuang Tianan looked at the two of them strangely, then turned around and looked at them with a smile, and was immediately a little dazed. At the door of the bar, Feiyu, who was wearing a colorful luobu hemskirt, was holding his family's flower basket in one hand and holding the blanket he had draped over his legs to protect him from the wind when he asked her to watch the store in the other hand. She was looking at the crowd inside with wide eyes. The waiter robot was chattering something to her, but she turned a deaf ear. There was a group of people near the door, and the noise of drinking and making noises stopped because of her appearance. Shuang Tianan stood up without thinking. Feiyu's eyes lit up and she hurried over. Madam, even if you're not buying any drinks, you still need to scan your ID before you can enter, the waiter robot hurried after her. You do it. Feiyu locked eyes with Shuang Tianan, her mind resolute, and she stopped immediately. Bars are ordinary living environments, and waiter robots must abide by public privacy rules. They can't automatically perform a deed or to connect after the first scan and try to grab the ID information from the human communicator. Seeing Feiyu's precarious appearance, which seemed inconvenient, it pleaded, Madam, could you please raise your hand for a moment? Oh, I can squat down too. Feiyu glanced at the robot, even lifting the flower basket. Shuang Tianan was almost there, and with a quick step, he reached out and lifted the bottom of the flower basket. Oh, thank you, the robot scanned, then hurriedly bowed to the side. Ms. Yan, welcome to the Mulila Bar. What brings you here? Shuang Tianan held the flower basket, his eyes wandering to Feiyu's face. Feiyu didn't bother to pay attention to the robot. She glanced at Shuang Tianan, and seeing many people around her looking at them, she smiled slightly. I'm closing up. Excuse me, Ms. Yan, would you like something to drink? The waiter robot interjected at the right time, its tone earnest. No, Feiyu stared at Shuang Tianan. I wanted to ask if you're going home. Shuang Tianan's gaze paused for a moment on Feiyu's face, and he smiled and nodded. Okay, he took the flower basket. Wait a minute, I'll go back to the table to get the wine glass back, Feiyu sighed, grabbing the blanket and following him. Shuang Tianan glanced sideways, reached over, tucked the blanket under his arm, and held Feiyu through the narrow aisle between the tables. Many people knew the couple, and from time to time, they would come out from everywhere to greet them. Deputy Director Yan, you're here, Feiyu always smiled faintly. Wow, what brings our sister-in-law Shang here too? Yin Dechen was already screaming. Feiyu still smiled faintly and answered according to the weather, spring breeze, gu huaisi. Xiao Duan and others were so happy that they stood up to make room for Feiyu. You guys sit down, I'm leaving soon. Shuang Tianan picked up his wine glass. You're leaving right after your sister-in-law arrived? That's not right. Let's sit together. No, we'll drink together next time. Shuang Tianan looked apologetic. Feiyu is setting up the stall alone, and the wind has been blowing too much. I'll take her home earlier. Oh, sister-in-law, are you okay? Several old neighbors expressed their concern. Not bad. Feiyu had something important on her mind, and she wasn't very good at making small talk. She just stood next to Shuang Tianan with a slight smile on her lips, looking a little weak. Tianan, look at you, You actually left your sister-in-law alone to watch the stall, and you drank instead. Sister-in-law, go back and give him a good scolding, and take care of yourself. Yin Dechen had just finished speaking when he was ridiculed by Xiao Duan. Talk about yourself, you left your sister-in-law Xiao alone in the shop. Hey, don't look at me, my family didn't set up the stall today. Amidst the jokes, Shang Tanin tilted his head back and drank the remaining wine in the glass, nodded to everyone at the table, and specifically said to Yu Qianchen, we'll go back first, you and everyone else drink slowly, okay? Yu Qianchen looked at the two of them with a sincere expression. Sister-in-law, go back and have a good rest. Feiyu nodded slightly, and seeing that Shang Tanin had carried a lot of things for her, she reached out to help take the empty wine glass. Deputy Director Yan is taking Deputy Director Shang away now. A joking voice came from somewhere in the crowd, triggering another round of laughter. Isn't this the old teacher who taught us? Tai Lian, sitting at a table in the corner, lowered his voice and said, he's equally amazing inside and out. It seems that even the master can't be at ease when he drinks a glass of wine. Shut up. The person next to him stepped on his foot. Shang Tanin, carrying a flower basket, a blanket, and Feiyu, just politely asked for permission to pass through. When he reached the door, he handed back the empty cup and the two of them left the bar. The noisy noise was instantly shut behind the door. What's wrong? He asked as soon as he reached a place with fewer people. They're here. Feiyu felt a little stuffy in her chest. The wind was really strong today. Who? Yan Qingjin and Yan Qingxi. Shang Tanin was stunned for 2 seconds before realizing that these were the names of the twin brother and sister from Feiyu's uncle's family. You mean, a letter? They sent you a letter, he thought to himself. The Chuxia was leaving today. Could it be that they discovered that they had missed a letter for Feiyu during the previous distribution, and are now giving it to her? He glanced at Feiyu again, and his voice was filled with disbelief. A person. Feiyu nodded silently. How is that possible? Shang Tanin was stunned and couldn't help but repeat himself. You mean, they came to Luoyang half an hour ago? They walked past our store at the market. What did they say? The 10-year split period has been changed to 7 years. The hosting center has agreed. That's unlikely to be true. Didn't you receive a letter from the hosting center a few months ago? There was no mention of such a major change. I've sorted out the timeline. Yan Qingjin won't come to me and make meaningless statements without solid facts. He will only take action when he is sure of what he has. Feiyu took a breath and spoke her mind. The letter the hosting center sent me this time is a response to my last letter. The change happened after Yan Qingjin and Yan Qingxi signed up for the Luoyang recruitment selection and passed. They said they hired a lawyer to ask the hosting center for similar special preferential treatment as me, and the hosting center agreed to their claim. I should be given the official letter notifying me of the change in the split period, but the collection period for the Chuxiu's voyage parcels has closed this time, so maybe I will receive it next time. If, in a few years, there is another time. After listening to her, Shang Tanin looked at her with a frown on her face. After a while, he put down the flower basket and blanket in his hands, walked forward to hug her lightly, and patted her back silently. Feiyu lowered her eyes and pursed her lips tightly. Feiyu, Shang Tanin let her go, took a step back, looked at her face carefully, and spoke softly. How much money does your family have? When the 7 years are up, we will give them all the income in our accounts. Is it enough? Chapter 344, Feiyu's Hatred. Feiyu looked at Shang Tanin in surprise. It's not enough. Shang Tanin looked at her, nodded, lowered his brows and thought for a while. Although it's not very good, I can still try to borrow from friends. Like Situ and Dechen, they usually have a good relationship. If I ask them then, they should be willing to lend it. This way we can make up the difference. I never borrow money. Oh, I'll go borrow it. Shang Tanin looked at her and was about to say something else. But she raised her eyebrows and her expression became strong again. You don't have to. If we split it, we split it. I'm mentally prepared for the worst result. Does 10 years and 7 years make any difference to me? Feiyu pulled the corner of her mouth. Anyway, I haven't made any money. Shang Tanin was amused by her. Well, don't worry, he comforted slowly sorted out and then think of a way. He picked up the flower basket. Feiyu felt a heavy burden on her heart at the moment, but it didn't affect her enthusiasm. She ran forward, pulled out the blanket from the flower basket, and insisted on sharing it. Shang Tanin wanted her to save some energy, so he quickly grabbed the other end of the blanket. The two of them accidentally pulled back and forth like a tug-of-war. Fortunately, no one was passing by at that moment, otherwise they would be laughed at. "I'll take it." Feiyu was particularly determined, staring at Xiong Tian'an with a sharp gaze, as if he was a target to be conquered in front of her. "Okay," Xiong Tian'an immediately agreed to her request. The two of them started walking again, leaving Shilin first. "I still don't understand." Xiong Tian'an went over the whole matter for Feiyu in his car, and said in confusion, "Why would your cousin be willing to come to Luoyang just for these 3 years? This is a desolate planet, and the risks are unpredictable." "I know why," Feiyu said faintly. "They are afraid that I will always enjoy preferential rights and not go back, and use this to extend it for another 10 years, and then it will continue to extend, and then they can only get living expenses every month. How is this different from them living outside and accepting financial support from the Yan family?" When the division of property was decided, I first proposed to postpone the division of some of the art collections of my grandfather and my father, but they proposed to entrust all the assets to entrust. It seemed generous to agree, but in fact they wanted me to be unable to return home within 3 years. I summoned Luoyang, so that they could not see any hope of division. They probably didn't expect that their original little thoughts would ruin their own good calculations. So they got anxious. Xiong Tian'an listened for a while and sighed softly. He turned and looked at Feiyu. "Since you saw this from the beginning and knew that entrusting all assets would leave you homeless, why didn't you insist on a way of handling it that would be more beneficial to you? At least deal with the real estate first, so that you won't be without a place to live after graduation, because I don't even want to share the house. That's where I grew up, and I must ensure that it remains intact. I would rather pay them to leave." Feiyu paused for a moment, a look of sadness in her eyes. "They also went to my house before they came." Xiong Tian'an looked at her and sighed again. Feiyu took a breath and suppressed her anger towards herself and the brother and sister. Yan Qingjin said that these little things were deliberately provoking her. "Who would be stupid?" she snorted coldly. "As long as their little thoughts do not conflict with my own overall vision, I don't mind tolerating their little thoughts." "What are you going to do next?" Xiong Tian'an asked tentatively. "Go find Hua Jing to find out about Yan Qingxi's situation first." Feizi had thought about it before, and she didn't stutter at this time. "As for Yan Qingjin, I heard that Hekan is in charge of the guidance work of the two men's communities in Shilin. I am not familiar with Hekan, but with Yan Qingjin's education level, he can't be listed in the list of professional technicians. It is very likely that he joined the engineering support department as a volunteer worker. It won't be difficult to investigate, Feizi, the situation of the brother and sister, at least Luo Wang's current situation. I can help you understand it clearly tomorrow. It's more convenient for me to stay in Shilin." Xiong Tian'an stared at Feizi, paused, and said sincerely, "What I mean is, after you understand, how do you plan to get along with them? After all, people are here, and we can be said to be very close in the future. We will see each other every time we look up or down. Do I need to get along with them?" Feizi tilted her head, stared and said in surprise, "I don't plan to get along with them." Xiong Tian'an was a little helpless and hesitated to speak. "I don't like them, not at all." "Then, treat them as strangers." Xiong Tian'an nodded. "Don't let them affect your mood. Your life and work are still the same as before. The only intersection between you and them is the 7-year separation period. Let's work together to find a way to deal with this matter." "There's still time," Feizi suddenly said. "They asked me to show mercy." "Did they say that?" "They came, did it, and said it, but they are still afraid that they are not prepared enough." Feizi shook her head. "It's so stupid. Just to make suspicions of a few more or less years, they inserted themselves and their sister. I don't know if they have thought about the way out. They are worried that those who came earlier and later will be suppressed by me." Feizi sneered hatefully. "If I had energy, I would never waste it on them. Instead of kicking them away, I would rather kick myself back to Mammon." No mistake. One poem, one post, one content, one book, one bar. Xiong Tian'an turned his head and glanced at her. "That's what I don't like about them. They always think they are pretending to be strong through weakness, full of pathos, and yet their weakness is eerie." She turned to look out the window. The vast peaks of the Qianping Mountain seemed like a work of art created by nature. Even after walking to their summits 1,000 times, she was still deeply amazed each time. The clouds and mist lingering between the peaks seemed like beacons guiding the way. Beyond the mountains, reaching the fertile plains, it was as if the world itself had taken this opportunity to relax, letting everything stretch freely. The clouds and mist dissipated, and the plains followed a blue sky to endless expanses. She suddenly realized that before today, she had actually been quite happy. Although she had always imagined Luoyang as a barren land. And even the Luoyang Star newspaper had always praised everyone's hard work and outstanding spirit, she now reflected on the journey from following Shang Tannen at the Quanchang Inn in Maman to here. She had experienced not only hardship but also small joys and small achievements. However, these feelings were all before today. Today was suddenly different. Feiyu stared at the sky and the vibrant fields before her, thinking of the brother and sister arriving on this planet, wandering about this pristine land, and carrying out their activities. It felt as if all those innocent little joys and achievements of the past had been destroyed by them. From now on, this planet, where she had suffered, been exhausted, yet also filled with joy, would no longer hold a memory of the pure, unrepentant youth. She particularly resented this aspect of them. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 345, Startled Deer. After the homecoming festival, the people of the entire Luoyang planet continued to carry out their daily work in an orderly manner. Early in the morning, Shang Tannen and Feiyu said goodbye at the door of their house. Do you want to go out to sea today? Ever since Feiyu started working on the Wishiwili Peninsula at the beginning of the year, he would ask this question every weekday morning. Yes, the robots at the Continental Shelf Shallow Margin Station are changing shifts, and I want to watch the sea. Feiyu waved and got into the car. I'm leaving. Your car is here, be careful on the road. Shang Tannen smiled and waved, and heard Feiyu say the same thing in return. The family's dirt bike then quickly climbed to high altitude, making way for the community commuter bus that came to pick him up for work, leaving a good parking space right in front of the door. The dirt bike formed a beautiful arc in the rising light of Qi, flying towards the southern Yanmei Mountains and the vast Langsan River. Shang Tannen thought that Feiyu hadn't reduced her breakfast intake at all and was still working so efficiently. She had rebounded significantly from the night before, when she had been slumped on a bench in the atrium porch, gazing at the stars. He thought he'd give her a snack tonight, since she could eat anyway. After giving Shang Yan these instructions, he boarded the shuttle bus to Shilin for work. Luoyang's first manned robot was officially named Luoji No. 1. Shang Tannen looked at the list in front of him, a little surprised. The girl looked familiar. On second thought, he had seen those graceful features before. He perused the accompanying information. Yan Qingxi, an outstanding graduate of Qikao Women's University, majoring in sociology, was single. She had landed on January 1st, the fourth year of Luoyang's reign, and lived in Dome No. 5, Section 2, Group 8, Fengyan Community. She was a Level 4 trainee assistant in the Organization Department's Job Structure Division. Her physical fitness was ranked below for women. Her speciality was her elegant writing style, and she was a Level 3 Qikao string music critic. The automatic screening system prompted, "Not recommended for project participation." He glanced at it, then continued to flip through the list of men from the 2nd Legion, quickly finding a page. Yan Qingjian, completing the 1-year youth course in the lifelong education program, unmarried, landed on January 1st, the 4th year of Luoyang, and resides in Dome No. 3, Section 4, Group 6, Qi Community. Deputy Captain of Team 19, Engineering Support Department. Physical fitness, male B class, upper. Specialties, practical and conscientious, self-assessed. Automatic screening system prompts, meets the requirements for the project's general test subject category. Those not selected in the random selection will be added to the assessment list. He stared at Yan Qingjian's profile picture for a moment, then closed the file without making any comments. The Luoji No. 1 manned aircraft test subject system then presented another selected list. It contained all members of the 1st Legion who had passed the automatic screening. Guard sergeants accounted for 2/3 of the total, with Qi Changgong, Gu Jack, and others prominently listed. One page had a red label flashing. He clicked on it and smiled. Feiyu's cold face faced him. The automated screening system simultaneously displayed a line of text in bold font, Ms. Yan is the spouse of a core member of the project team. Please determine whether the principle of marital avoidance should be applied, exempting her from the obligation to participate in the experiment. Shang Tannen clicked yes, and Feizai's profile vanished. He exited the subject screening system, packed up, and headed to the roundhouse for a meeting. Today, the roundhouse had returned to a state of quiet and solemnity, unlike the days leading up to the homecoming festival, when the Chuxi was nearing its return journey and countless people were coming in and out daily to report, request instructions, and discuss work. The cheerful farewell message on the roundhouse's screens had gone dark, and the flags lining the road a kilometer ahead had also been removed. Shang Tannen walked along the roundhouse's circular path toward the inner meeting room. Passing several alleyways around the outer ring, a thought struck him, as he remembered that the entire organization department was located within this area. Of Luoyang's 16 departments, excluding the newest engineering support department, the first wave of personnel from the other 15 had settled in Luoyang Star's first human-built building during the initial landing. Later, as each department built its own office building, they moved out one after another. As Luoyang's defense and administrative services became increasingly specific and detailed, the roundhouse itself was expanded on the periphery, leaving each department with a designated daily liaison office so that relevant personnel from each department could rest when called upon by the roundhouse headquarters. However, the organization department was always included in the roundhouse and did not build an independent office area. The mechanical management department also had a liaison office. After the Luoji No. 1 project entered the prototype stage this year, various coordination meetings increased, and Shang Tannen often went to his own office to work for a short period of time during the meetings. It would be better not to rush back to the department after the meeting. Shang Tannen thought about it, and after the meeting, he went to the liaison office and took a walk around the outside of the roundhouse. It was a coincidence. A woman walked out of the side corridor, her footsteps were light and crisp. Shang Tannen subconsciously glanced at her, then looked again, and stopped. The woman didn't notice at first, and continued to walk over with a smile, but her eyes were fixed on the figure at the outside of the corridor, and after a while her steps slowed down. Shang Tannen stood like this, and anyone would know that he was waiting for someone on purpose. Moreover, at the current distance, they could already see the facial features of both parties very clearly. The woman walked to the entrance of the corridor and stopped 1.5 meters away from Shang Tannen, with obvious nervousness in her eyes. After a brief silence, Shang Tannen spoke first. "Hello, hello." Yan Qingxi's eyes fluttered twice like a startled deer, revealing a small smile, and after a moment she added a weak greeting, "Brother-in-law." Shang Tannen glanced at the girl in front of him. "It seems we have met before, also here." Yan Qingxi pursed her lips and nodded softly. "I haven't seen you before. I didn't recognize you last time." "I'm sorry, last time. I didn't see my brother-in-law either. I wasn't sure, and didn't say hello in time." Yan Qingxi nodded. "Are you busy now?" Shang Tannen looked at her anxious expression and said kindly, "Let's chat for a few minutes." "Will it bother you?" Yan Qingxi quickly shook her head. "Not busy. Our supervisor asked me to go to the propaganda department's office to see if anyone is in the manuscript department and ask about the finalization of the Star newspaper." Shang Tannen knew that such a thing could be communicated through a work video, so letting a trainee assistant do it was nothing more than letting her get more familiar with the environment and people. He nodded slightly. "Then I won't keep you too long. Feizai came back yesterday and said that she met you at the market." "Yes." Yan Qingxi lowered her eyes. "We just found out that you came here with this batch. Are you and your brother adapting here?" Shang Tannen said gently. Yan Qingxi raised her eyes with a little surprise and looked at him. "I'm still getting used to it. When is your brother free? I'd like to talk to him. We live in different neighborhoods and can't usually interact with each other." Yan Qingxi lowered her head. "The only time I can see my brother is on weekends." Shang Tannen paused for a moment, only her fluttering eyelashes visible. "Okay, I'll make my own arrangements." "Don't bother you." Yan Qingxi suddenly raised her eyes, a bit panicked. "Brother-in-law, what are you going to talk to my brother about?" "Nothing, just a chat." Shang Tannen tried to speak softly. "I've met your brother before, and since I knew you were coming to Luoyang, I wanted to meet again." "My brother said," Yan Qingxi smiled, "that your sister-in-law is very kind." "Really? I didn't have much contact with him before." Shang Tannen was slightly surprised, then smiled. "Your cousin is also very nice, if you know her." Yan Qingxi glanced at Shang Tannen and nodded. Then go and get busy, okay? Yan Qingxi bowed before turning around. Shuang Tian'an looked at her back as she took small steps, sighed silently, and turned around as well. Chapter 346 Everyone is here. On the eastern side of the Ojiri Peninsula, the robots at the shallow continental shelf observation station completed their shift change at noon, at low tide. Feiyu and Gan Wu, the trainee robot manager, were on the beach, waiting for the robots to return. In the distance, a few black dots appeared on the gray-blue line where the sea and sky meet. Keep going, Feiyu ordered. They still have to inspect a few more tidal flat observation spheres on their way, so they still have time. Oh, Gan Wu continued. He was talking about Yu Qianchen. Feiyu had originally seen Gan Wu coming out of the Xiling Highlands today, and since she had some free time, she and Gan Wu had discussed the recruitment and training for their second legion. Perhaps Gan Wu happened to recognize the Yan Qingzhen siblings. However, Gan Wu hadn't said much before he mentioned Yu Qianchen. Gan Wu and Yu Qianchen lived nearby in the Qinghaian community. Both worked in the robotics industry and had known each other since the Quirky training camp. Gan Wu explained that Yu Qianchen's alma mater, Donglan, was renowned. He'd heard that two of Yu Qianchen's classmates had already come to Luoyang and even dined at their homes. This time, Gan Wu was assigned to the non-human lifeforms research department. Upon hearing that he was a classmate's subordinate, Yu Qianchen remarked that the assignment was a good one. Feiyu, unfazed by the news about Yan Qingzhen and his sister, continued to brief Gan Wu on the assignment. The sea breeze rustled the crests of the waves as hunter robots approached. Seabirds circling the surface, searching for food, cackled, believing their larger counterparts were poaching. These robots have been on duty at the underwater observation station for a full cycle. They need to be brought up for maintenance according to procedure. We'll do minor maintenance ourselves, and send major repairs back to the mechanical management department. Yes, Gan Wu was a solid young man with a solid education. He graduated from a mechanical college comparable to Donglin's, majoring in robotic attachment tools. Before coming to Luoyang, he worked at a large robotics factory. After being assigned to the non-human lifeforms department, he became Feiyu's subordinate. He was a year older than Feiyu, tall and sturdy, but he immediately addressed Feiyu sincerely as Sister Yan. Previously, Gan Wu and the other newcomers had been training at the Shilin non-human division headquarters. For those stationed on the Oshiri Peninsula, whenever they returned to report on their work, he would explain the department's history to them. Gan Wu and Feiyu hadn't had much formal work contact, but Feiyu had a good overall opinion of Gan Wu. He was quiet, but could communicate professionally, and had plenty of strength, quite a good guy. She was about to say more when her communicator chimed. She glanced at him. I'll take a video call, okay, Gan Wu said respectfully. Feiyu stepped aside, raised an eyebrow, and asked crisply, what's up, Feiyu? I want to tell you that your chance to be a test subject in the manned robot project has been cancelled, Shuang Tian'an explained. Because of me, I got pulled out. He knew Feiyu was curious about the prototype. In fact, no one in the robotics industry would abandon such curiosity. After all, this was the debut of a new technology. It's not stable yet. Wait until it's more stable, he said. Still unstable now. Feiyu glanced at him, a rare hint of teasing in her voice. Yes, Shuang Tian'an said modestly. Feiyu complained briefly about the well-intentioned couple avoidance system. The Roundhouse Command was being overly cautious. They'd established this system out of concern that a couple working together would be difficult to manage, and that they were also afraid that if they were on the same dangerous mission, both would be damaged or even wiped out. She understood that testing this type of robot was riskier than operating a regular robot. If it crashed, someone at home would have to contact the hospital or something. So, at this moment, she felt a little regretful that she couldn't be among the first to test a machine, but she didn't mind much. There was plenty of time. Shuang Tian'an hadn't made this video call specifically for this matter. Knowing him well, she easily guessed there was something else. She stared at him seriously, waiting to hear what he had to say. I'll send you Yan Qingzhen and Yan Qingxi's information later. As expected, Shuang Tian'an always completed his promises with great efficiency. Okay, Feiyu said flatly. Hey, Feiyu, Shuang Tian'an stopped her and said soothingly, don't rush this, I'm not in a hurry. Feiyu spoke, glancing at the line of hunter robots and rookie Gan Wu on the other side of the beach, keeping an eye on them from time to time, looking genuinely calm. Everyone's here, The engineering support department was the closest department to the residential community on the entire Xiling Plateau. The commuter buses would unload a full load of people in a matter of moments, then soar back to pick up another load before the previous one arrived and lined up at the drill area. Every morning, the Caring community's commuter fleet would be out before the other 3 districts. Aside from a few who were assigned to other departments as executive assistants, nearly all the young and middle-aged men in the Caring community belonged to the engineering support department. They would all rush to the headquarters compound for morning exercises, then have breakfast together before starting their day's various training or classes. During the break between morning exercises and breakfast, the team leader would visit the mission room to confirm the team's schedule for the day. These schedules were directly assigned by the mission matching system based on the team's overall performance. Sometimes, multiple tasks could be assigned, and the team leader would decide which one to choose. Teams could also coordinate with each other. Finally, when the task was confirmed and accepted, it had to be approved and recorded by the system. Before leaving get off work, the team leader would usually visit the mission room again to provide a summary of the day's execution. Every day, the team's overall performance rankings were updated. These rankings were displayed on the wall opposite the entrance to the mission room and in the group dining room. Before the homecoming festival, the mission matching system offered only courses. Even field walks were considered training courses. However, this changed after the homecoming festival, when the mission matching system began to include support assignments issued by other departments. Teams that performed well in the previous courses were assigned first by the system to conduct real-world operations. Tian still remembered the 5th team, which had taken on the cargo transport task from the logistics department a few days earlier. Everyone was so relieved and proud upon returning. After their captain handed in their mission record, the group of team members waiting on the steps outside the mission room cheered. It turned out the performance points had gone up by a ton, meaning their allowances tied to that month's performance points, and even their social contribution points, which would be very useful in future housing and land allocations, would increase along with them. Tian was envious, as was everyone else. When they asked the team members how difficult the task was, they replied, "It's just a bailiff's job." They said they were just preparing for it, but in reality, they were a team of backup. For the real work, the logistics department had dedicated robots for storage and transportation. The supervisor had requested a group of people from the engineering support department to be on standby with the robotics team in case the robots malfunctioned and damaged the precious supplies. To be honest, the 5th team had just gone for a spin outside the Shilin shelter, saving all their energy and not using it. Even so, the 5th team was incredibly flamboyant. Not only did they boast about their visit to the logistics department's large warehouse in the outer settlement, they even deliberately made noises as they walked. Every day during group meals, they would gather at the meal dispenser where the team rankings were displayed, laughing loudly, drawing everyone's attention to the list. They could also be heard making plans to go to the Mulila bar on their next day off. "We've got a little extra cash, so let's have a few drinks." They always said this with a nonchalant, almost nonchalant expression that was quite annoying. Chapter 347, Deputy Team 19. As it happens, Tian has been plagued by a few more teams these days. Team 8 from the engineering support department has been assigned to some construction site cleanup at the construction department, essentially checking for robots already cleaning and then having them double-check. Team 3 is helping to monitor equipment at a site in the science department. And Team 1 is checking sorted slag at a mine in the Energy and Resources Department to see if there's any mismatch. They all say it's easy work, and they act like they're full of energy but haven't used it all. After returning, they all like to go down to the distribution board and line up for food. Tian, however, is impatient to watch the bustle in the cafeteria. He greets his fellow comrades, takes his captain's share of nutrients, and heads out, stalking towards the mission room. He stops at the bottom of the stairs and peeks in. "Hey, Team 27's deputy, TZ, weren't you eating? Why are you here too?" A number of deputy captains, like Tian, have gathered at the mission room steps, waiting for the latest news. Tian could hear the teasing in the greeting and said unhappily, "Now that you're done, bring some food to our boss, Brother TZ. That's thoughtful." Tian didn't even bother to grumble. He hadn't been here to hang out before, but it was Boss Yu's order. Boss Yu said that no matter what, one of the 2 captains and deputy captains must keep a close eye on their squads. With the boss away, it was up to him to see to it that the men ate breakfast. Their squad 27 was falling behind. So, he couldn't stay in the cafeteria any longer. He didn't want to blame anyone else. He himself had gotten a passing grade in one of his classes, a rare occurrence, and Boss Yu had worried about him. They discussed his strengths and weaknesses in bed, and it proved incredibly effective. In subsequent classes, he'd closely matched Boss Yu's scores, which at least helped to improve the overall performance of Squad 27. But there were still cheaters in their squad, and several other brothers' early class scores had been mediocre, contributing to the team's underwhelming performance on the leaderboard. Tian was getting anxious again. A while ago, no one knew how crucial course performance was, assuming it was enough to just get through the adaptation phase. But in recent days, they've realized that whether or not they get assignments now depends on their performance in the previous course, while whether or not they get future assignments depends on how well they perform in the current assignments. If they never get any assignments, how can they earn performance? It's all interconnected. Good performance gets assignments, and continued performance gets more assignments. Eventually, as they become qualified for more assignments, everyone's performance points will skyrocket, along with their allowances. They can even choose the best assignments, eventually becoming a gold medal team and earning higher allowances. On the other hand, teams that haven't done any actual work will plummet down the rankings. Even if the system allocates some assignments to these teams, everyone knows that being assigned to the bottom of the pile won't be a good option. Assignments and allowances are linked, that's how it works. This was the latest situation he and Boss Yu had analyzed over another night in bed. In short, their team needed a starting assignment. You can't come all this way just to collect a bottom-of-the-line salary. Tian listened to the room, filled with laughter and chatter. The captains were all calm and composed, seemingly unfazed. He glanced at the deputy captains around him. You've been standing here since early this morning. Has anyone heard from their families? He wondered, considering the recent daily intensive classes and drills with the guards. Captains would often leave the mission room, sometimes discussing which classes to attend with their deputy captains. He wondered if any captains had left today. Whoever leaves now is just continuing with class or drill. There's no rush, one deputy captain chimed in, jokingly saying, my boss must have been selected. That's why the paperwork is taking so long. The group laughed. Look at you, you're so shameless. The engineering support department is full of people, and it's no wonder there's a lot of reckless people. Those who are so ruthless enough to pursue a career like Luoang, they all share empathy, chatting and joking, not taking such jokes seriously. They'd been running into each other since their pre-trip training at Kaolachi, and now they were all gathered in the same caring community. Even if they didn't know everyone by name, they were somewhat familiar with each other. Tian laughed too. He'd hoped that Boss Yu was inside to handle the formalities. However, when his eyes caught sight of someone, he was slightly surprised. The deputy was tall and thin, with a gentle smile. In fact, Tian remembered this person as always being polite the few times they met him, seeming more serious in his words and actions than anyone else. The 19th deputy. Tian remembered the direction of their team's table in the large restaurant. It seemed to be either Team 18 or Team 19. The deputy's smile was tinged with worry. At this moment, everyone, regardless of whether they were looking serious or deliberately nonchalant, was worried. He's out, someone with a sharp eye called out. Tian hurriedly rushed forward with the other deputy team members, looking for their Boss Yu in the captain's group chat. No mistakes, one post, one content, 1619, one book, one forum. How's it going? How's it going? He shouted before he could even get a chance. Let's go, eat and go drill. Tian was almost furious, and it wasn't his turn to go to Team 27. He turned to see what the captain and deputy captain of the other teams were talking about, but he got a slap on the shoulder. Let's go. Sharpening the knives doesn't delay the chopping of wood. Let's go drill. When he returned to the main dining hall to meet up with his teammates, Tian heard cheers rising and falling. He looked in the direction of the sound and counted the tables. They were Team 6, Team 9, Team 14, and Team 19. These four teams were in a frenzy. They were laughing and banging tables and chairs back in place, and the captains were urging them loudly, hurry up, hurry up. Tian was closer to Team 19 and saw the others rushing out of the dining hall. To be honest, he was jealous. They would continue with their regular drills and could even sit in the dining hall for a while. Boss Yu, what mission did Team 19 get? Why? Their course scores, Tailian, fearing he'd made a mistake, looked up at the team rankings displayed across from him. They're not even that much better than us. There are a dozen or so teams ahead of them. Why are they getting their turn? It's their turn, Yubai said, glancing toward the cafeteria entrance before returning to his own team and shouting, "Have you eaten? Eat, then we'll be out for drill." 7 mountain ranges stretch north-south along the western edge of the Luoyang Pangaea. Their peaks are perpetually shrouded in mist. The westernmost is the Guanfan Plateau, and below them lies a vast desert covering tens of thousands of miles of coastline. This region boasts mountains, deserts, canyons, inland rivers, beaches, ridgeline grasslands, sparse woods, and dense forests. The landscape is incredibly diverse and rugged, but also extremely harsh for humans. Since the initial landing, this area has been permanently excluded from settlement, with only observation stations established. The Science Department and the Mechanical Management Department oversee scientific research and operations. In the Pangaea Observatory System, this is known as Zone 7. A newly constructed, remote testing site by the Mechanical Management Department is located on the desert-facing slope of the Guanfan Plateau. Team 19 will be operating there today. Chapter 348 Goodbye Old Friend, Goodbye 2019. Everyone, listen carefully. Each of you will be responsible for an area. Go through it carefully. The edge of the hole, the handrails, the shoulder lines of the road, and especially those corners and crevices, must all be checked against the requirements table. There cannot be any mistakes. If you find any abnormalities, mark them immediately. For example, it must be smooth, without any burrs. If there are burrs, not even a millimeter less will do. Team leader Qi Changgong walked in front of the team and shouted loudly, "Don't trust the robot's inspection results and let it go carelessly. We must work hard to make this a high-quality job. The last point is also very important. Remember this," Qi Changgong said seriously. "Our engineering support department is doing support work on other people's territory. No matter what you see or hear, if it is not related to our work content, don't look or listen blindly, and don't go back and discuss it casually as if it's a game. A team has already been warned." "Huh?" The team immediately made a commotion, and someone asked curiously, "Brother Song, which team? Who do you care about?" Qi Changgong glared, a hint of intimidation in his eyes. "Anyway, their work allowances were earned and then wiped out. For the first time, I saved face and didn't criticize them publicly. I mentioned it at the morning meeting of the mission room captains this morning, and the captain alone took the blame." There were snickers from the audience. Only a few teams have been on a mission before. Go back and see which team's leader has a bad face, and you'll know, it's not just the leader who has a bad face, it's the whole team. "Okay," Qi Changgong shouted, "let's get back to ourselves. I'm giving you all this reminder. Remember, this is how it's going to be on every mission from now on. Do your own thing, don't disrupt the normal work of other departments, call it a day, and don't talk too much." He took a breath and said, "Brothers, pick up your toolboxes and get started." "Jinzi," he called to Yan Qingjin, "the place is big. I'll be on this hill, you go to the other hill, and keep in touch." Yan Qingjin shouldered the toolbox and nodded. Then he heard Qi Changgong instruct his comrades, "If you encounter any situation that's difficult to judge, first look for Jinzi. And, everyone, listen carefully. Today's lunch is a special meal here. When the time comes, find your way there. Don't wander around." The team burst into laughter and dispersed. Yan Qingjin was in charge of a plank road at the cave entrance. He followed a work map and entered the designated area, looking up to survey the surroundings. The voices of his companions faded after a while. They must have settled into their positions. It was an arched cave. A mountain breeze blew in from the entrance. He listened, and it sounded like the melodious sound of a snail shell. He looked at the black rock walls on either side, then slowly walked forward to the platform where the cave entrance and the plank road met. Looking out, he saw the plank road he needed to inspect hanging alone beyond the platform. Below him, dense, verdant trees clustered together. They rose and fell, clinging to the mountain's contours, leaving almost no gaps. The wind blew on his face, and the surroundings were extremely quiet, with only a dazzling skylight shining on the mountains. After savoring it for a while, he felt that there seemed to be some heat from the desert in the wind. Yan Qingjin squinted and turned to a certain angle. Although his sight was blocked by the mountains and fields, he knew that in the distance, it should be the western edge desert on the map of Pangaea. He stood for a while, turned around and walked into the arch, opened the toolbox, and started working. A whole morning passed. Jinzi, Is it going well? Yes, let's go. Call your brothers on the hilltop. We're going to eat, okay? Yan Qingjin raised his waist and put all kinds of tools into the box. After a whole morning's work, this section of the arch has been manually reviewed, and the plank road can be inspected in the afternoon. Tisk, I thought the special meal would have something delicious, but it turns out to be just nutrient supplements. There were only members of Team 19 in the restaurant at the bottom of the mountain, so they didn't hold back. The shouting member turned around and took a look, and commented, "The environment is not that good. It doesn't look as organized as the first one." "What did I say before? What did I say?" Qin Song shouted at the speaker. "How is the environment? Do you want us to say it? We just work and eat. We are really free." He took a big sip of the nutrient supplement, and said worriedly, "Don't describe it casually when you go back. This is professional ethics." Qin Song repeated the words that the deputy director of the engineering support department had scolded the captain of Team 5 at the morning meeting. Now no team member spoke, and everyone just laughed and drank the nutrient supplements. Not bad, Qin Song, having worked hard all morning, couldn't hold back any longer. After a while, he added, "This is a spot outside the mechanical management department, and it's already quite good. This meal was paid for by someone else, and it doesn't count towards the team's public expenses. Jinzi, when you review our team's expenses later, please note that this meal doesn't count." "Got it," Yan Qingjin agreed immediately. As the team's deputy, he was responsible for assisting the captain with the team's internal affairs, from manually reviewing the team's budget and expenditures, distributing clothing and nutritional supplements, to drafting the team's interim performance reports. Qin Song was accustomed to repeating everything he said to the other team members, but with Yan Qingjin, even a casual remark was enough, and he didn't have to worry about his deputy forgetting. Ever since the two of them were assigned to Team 19 to assist in its management, he had become increasingly satisfied with his deputy. Some people said Yan Qingjin didn't look particularly fit, and his performance wasn't top-notch, but he dismissed it. Why would he need to be so fit? This team wasn't fit enough. A good mind and a good temper were what made him effective. Qin Song easily finished his nutrient supplement and looked up to see two robots carrying trays into the dining room. "Gentlemen, thank you for your hard work. These are Luo Wang's local sweet cakes. Please enjoy." "Oh my. Look, Luo Wang's local sweet cakes." As the robots retreated, Qin Song laughed and admitted, "I was just wondering why the snacks were missing from the mission list. It turns out they've made sure everything was arranged. Brothers, try some." Although the meal wasn't long, it was a delightful one. Afterward, Qin Song wiped his mouth and told everyone to return to their posts and continue working hard. Yan Qingjin was the last to leave the dining room. In the engineering support department's shared dining room, there was a rule that each team's dining area must be left as clean as before or after a meal. He always walked behind the team, checking the cleanliness of the dining area. If he found even the slightest dirt or a table or chair out of place, he would immediately contact the dining room service robots. This habit permeates every meal. He looked around the restaurant and saw nothing unusual. It was empty and tidy. He then hurried out. Qin Song was leisurely watching the scenery outside the door. When he saw him come out, he smiled and knew what he was doing. "Okay, everyone is here. Eat and drink enough, let's get going to work," the captain shouted, and Team 19 returned to their positions and started working again. Yan Qingjin returned to his area and turned into the archway. His steps suddenly stopped and his eyes narrowed. The sky outside the cave became brighter and brighter, and there was a person standing at the entrance of the plank road. Chapter 349, The Innocent and Kind Feiyu. Hello 2020. Hello. Shang Tanin turned sideways and greeted with a smile. Yan Qingjin solemnly glanced at the figure outside, pursed his lips very lightly, slowly walked out of the archway, and stopped at the entrance. He did not speak. Shang Tanin looked at him, and in an instant he remembered the way he used to hold the tattered bag and suck nutritional substitutes at the steps of Mamang City Hall. Over the years, Yan Qingjin's appearance and temperament seemed to have not changed much. Feiyu came back the other day and said that she met you at the market. Shang Tanin said softly, "We are very surprised." "How have you been these years?" Yan Qingjin looked at Shang Tanin, and after a while said, "Fine, brother-in-law. How about you?" "We are fine too." Shang Tanin smiled. "Can we chat for a while?" "What to talk about?" Yan Qingjin stood still. Brother Kaiong was half blocked by him when he was exposed to the sun at the entrance of the cave. It seemed that his expression was flickering. I still have to work, just a few minutes. Your team is very serious. You started working before lunch break. It's still early. Yan Qingjin pursed her lips again, half closed her eyes and said, "This is my brother-in-law's department. Of course, my brother-in-law has the final say. However, our assistant's work is mainly piece rate and quality based, so I can't delay too long." "It won't be too long," Shang Tannen apologized. "I'm sorry, this is really not a good place to chat," he explained kindly. "I heard Feiyu say that you met her, so I thought, since you came from afar, I should meet you and say hello sometime. But you now live in a collective community, and as Miss Kingsley said, there are many management rules. It's not very convenient for everyone to meet at other times, so I took advantage of your mission today to meet you here." Yan Qingjin's face changed slightly when Shang Tannen mentioned Yan Qingxi. After he finished speaking, he immediately asked, "Did you go to find my sister, Qingjin? Do you mind if I call you that?" Shang Tannen maintained a gentle smile and shook his head. "You really don't have to be nervous. I just happened to meet Miss Kingsley near her workplace a few days ago, said hello, and asked her, by the way, when are you free? I want to meet you, that's it." Yan Qingjin stared at Shang Tannen, his eyes flickering, and said after a while, "What does my brother-in-law want to talk to me about?" "I remember," he dragged his voice, and his meaning was difficult to distinguish. "My brother-in-law and I didn't talk much before, maybe the timing was not right then." Shang Tannen sighed, and asked seriously, "Qingjin, why don't we talk openly? Did my cousin call my brother-in-law?" "No, Feiyu has been very busy with work recently. I came to you today because I wanted to talk to you myself." "Okay." Yan Qingjin raised his eyebrows and nodded. "I want to ask," Shang Tannen's eyes were fixed on Yan Qingjin's face, "what are you doing here with your sister and Luoyang?" Yan Qingjin was slightly surprised, as if he didn't expect Shang Tannen to be so direct. He stood up straight and looked at Shang Tannen. "The Alliance issued a recruitment order for Luoyang, so we came here. Have you thought about what to do after you come here?" Shang Tannen sighed. "This can almost be said to affect your whole life. Haven't you thought about the way out?" "The way out?" Yan Qingjin suddenly laughed. As far as Shang Tannen could remember, he had never seen Feiyu's cousin laugh. At this moment, the corners of Yan Qingjin's lips curled up, but because he was thin, his smile looked thin. "Brother-in-law, have you thought about the way out?" "No, let's not talk about you, let's talk about our dear cousin. Did she think about the way out? Did she come here anyway? Her situation is different from yours," Shang Tannen said in a gentle voice. "She was burdened by me and had to come. The separation period was extended because the circumstances at the time didn't allow her to handle these family matters in a timely manner. You're different. You had a choice and didn't have to come." "Brother-in-law, are you saying you want to send us back?" "No one can send you back," Shang Tannen shook his head. "No one can, including yourselves. No one here can just go back whenever they want. That's what I want to tell you. So, if you find life here difficult in the future and regret it, you shouldn't blame Feiyu. It was your choice, it was our choice, and we followed in my cousin's footsteps." Yan Qingjin chuckled. "We trust my cousin's vision. Luoyang is an emerging area, so there's no need to regret it. Brother-in-law, do you know our Urals? My cousin has been there, didn't she tell you? If you had been there, you'd know that leaving Urals, no matter where we go, wouldn't be a worse choice for my sister and me. No matter how you look at your past lives, it wasn't Feiyu's fault. She and you are just the same age. This is my point of view, and you might reconsider it." Shang Tannen was still very gentle, "And I think that since we are all on such a desolate planet, we should consider the present and the future. This is the main purpose of my talking to you today. Brother-in-law wants to discuss the present and the future with me." "Yes." Shang Tannen looked at Yan Qingjin quietly and asked again, "What are your plans now that you are here? Work and make money, aren't these the two things we came to Luoyang for?" "Of course, I'm not afraid to say it directly, waiting for the time to come to divide our rightful property." Shang Tannen listened for a while and nodded. "I understand. Qingjin, I came to you today, in addition to wanting to communicate your ideas with you openly, I also have something to say. You know I'm here." Shang Tannen looked directly at Yan Qingjin. "You were not surprised to see me here just now. You probably inquired about it in advance." In fact, he didn't want to expose it directly. He certainly knew that it was not an easy task for a newcomer to the Second Legion to find out the specific units and positions of the people from the First Legion who had landed earlier. Especially during his entire adaptation process in the Second Legion, He had no direct contact with them at all. He had never taught them a lesson, and the latest star post or other public information had not specifically mentioned his department or project. However, Yan Qingjin didn't seem surprised at all to meet him in this support assignment issued by the Mechanical Management Department. Shuang Tianan was thinking at this time that Yan Qingjin probably knew that Feiyu was working in the non-human department. He looked at Yan Qingjin and couldn't help but sighed. "Qingjin, the thing you said to Feiyu about showing mercy doesn't exist," Shuang Tianan said sincerely. "Feiyu is not that kind of person." Then, Yan Qingjin raised his eyes, quite interested. "Brother-in-law. What kind of person is my cousin, the eldest lady of the Yan family? She is serious and responsible in everything she does and in everyone she does. She may appear cold on the outside but warm on the inside," Shuang Tianan said after a pause. "She is innocent and kind. Maybe sometimes her outward expressions are not as friendly as those of ordinary people, but she is sincere. Is this the reason why my brother-in-law is willing to be with my cousin?" Shuang Tianan glanced at Yan Qingjin and did not answer the question. He said seriously, "Qingjin, I am telling you all this today because it is fate that we met. I will come to Luoyang first and tell you the general situation of Luoyang, and I also want to reassure you that Feiyu is a very straightforward person and very reasonable. She almost says what she thinks, and there is no need for others to put too much thought on her." Yan Qingjin had no expression. He stood at the entrance of the cave, and Shuang Tianan had talked to him for so many words, but his posture had not changed at all. The sunlight shone on half of his face, and it has been shining until now. The toolbox was on his back, and he had never taken it off. Shuang Tianan suppressed his sigh, and his voice became more and more gentle. "I always believe that if a person is in an unfamiliar environment with uncertain ideas, his life and work will not be easy. Here in Luoyang, the environment is actually not comfortable, and the workload will always be heavy. If the psychological burden in other aspects is less, it will be relatively better." He glanced at Yan Qingjin and nodded slightly. "Sorry to bother you today. In the future, if you have any problems in life and work, you can come to me directly if you are willing. After all, I came here before you, and maybe I can provide some advice." "Thank you, brother-in-law." Shuang Tianan chuckled and paused. "In fact, if you have any ideas or opinions, my suggestion is that you find Feiyu to communicate well. She is a serious person." Yan Qingjin glanced at Shuang Tianan's face, and after a moment said, "Brother-in-law is at home, and it is my cousin who is in charge, right?" Shuang Tianan was stunned, then shook his head, smiled and said nothing, and walked away from the plank road. When passing by Yan Qingjin, who had been standing there without moving, politely stepped sideways half a step to make room. When he walked out of the archway, he looked back and saw that Yan Qingjin had walked onto the plank road, squatting down to take out the tools, and then half kneeling on the ground to check the plank road guardrail. Shuang Tianan looked for a while and left the archway silently. Chapter 350. A good start. After morning exercises every day, Tilian would eat half of the meal in the bustling cafeteria, then take Captain Yubai's portion and help carry it to the bottom of the mission room stairs to wait. He watched as, day after day, there were always some deputy team members who happily hugged their captain at the bottom of the stairs, and then immediately rushed back to the cafeteria like the wind, shouting at their teammates to set off, as if the world was waiting for them to save it. Tilian had seen this scene countless times, but it was never his or his captain's turn. Today, he took 2 more nutrient supplements and waited at the bottom of the mission room stairs in advance. He turned his head and saw that the deputy team members were quite complete. After automatically gathering like this every day, they had become more and more familiar. During the usual greetings, his eyes turned to the 19th deputy team member. "Good morning, Brother Jinzi." "Good morning, Brother Tai." Tilian admired the deputy of Team 19. Team 19 had already successfully completed its first support mission, climbing into the top 5 of the standings. Yet their deputy was still waiting here every day, his radar fixed on him, never a smug look on his face. On the contrary, he looked as eager and anxious as the other deputy commanders who had never done a formal mission. What a formidable opponent. The deputy of Team 19 wasn't a cheerful person, but he was very friendly. Tilian could sense the warmth in his eyes during their previous exchange of glances. He felt a little embarrassed. He had secretly considered him a competitor. Oh, look how anxious he was. Tilian peered into the room, his thoughts wandering. It was already July, and their team still hadn't been assigned a real support mission by the system. Is the system blind? Team 27 had previously been consistently in the upper middle of the standings, and their drop in ranking had only happened in the last few days. It was all because of the generous distribution of missions these past few days, assigning many teams previously ranked lower than Team 27, instantly overtaking them. Forgetting about June's operating allowance, Tilian was now focused entirely on July, hoping for a good start and a chance to turn things around. "It's out," someone called out, and Tilian quickly looked. Suddenly, he was stunned. Why was Boss Yu smiling so strangely? He didn't usually smile like this during morning meetings. "How is it going?" Tilian's heart was pounding. "Got it," Yu Bai drawled, his brows beaming. Wow. The good news came so suddenly that Tilian was speechless. He watched Yu Bai hop down the stairs and suddenly realized that it was time for him, the deputy team leader, to call his companions to prepare for departure. Tilian ran toward the restaurant, howling, but after 2 or 3 steps, he turned back. "Boss Yu, here you go." He placed the nutrient solution in Yu Bai's hand. Yu Bai scoffed. "I thought you were going to let a captain like me, who worked so hard to secure this mission, starve. How could that be?" Tilian chuckled, now completely alert. He chuckled again and asked happily, "What's our assignment?" Yu Bai glanced at him, then at the others nearby who seemed eager to hear more. He leaned closer to Tilian, but didn't lower his voice. "Non-human lifeform research department. Oh, as long as there was a good start, no matter what department. There was no job that Tilian's brothers couldn't handle." Embracing the joyful news, Tilian strode towards the restaurant. Feiyu stood on the beach with a sullen face, Ganwu to his left and Hunter to his right, his eyes scanning the group before him. "Who's sick? Speak up now." No one in the group spoke. Aside from the chirping of red-browed martins whirling over the water, the bay was silent, with only the sound of waves lapping against the shore. "Claustrophobia, scotophobia, neurasthenia. Tell me if you have any, and I'll arrange for your removal," Feiyu repeated, her voice rising. She waited, but no one moved. However, just as she was about to continue, a large man at the back of the group pursed his lips. "You?" She looked straight at him. "What's the problem?" Everyone else in the group glanced at him. The man swallowed hard. "I'm fine." Feiyu said nothing, pacing to the second row and tilting her head. The man was so slow that she needed her hunter robot to prompt her. "Our supervisor wants you to step out of line," the hunter said in a muffled voice. "Huh? Oh." The man hurried out, bumping into the person next to him, who thankfully had a firm footing. Feiyu frowned slightly. She'd heard that the members of the engineering support department were trained according to the same rules as the guards. Could it be that the requirements for them had been lowered by more than one level? Why was this man so unsteady? A broad-shouldered, thick-backed man stood before her, his eyes filled with nervousness. "Name, report," he stuttered for a moment before saying, "Yu Gua." Feiyu then directly pointed out the list of personnel for the operation team. Yu Gua's latest health report showed good health. She glanced at Yu Gua, not wasting any time. "Who's Yu Bai?" She looked at the team. A man at the edge of the first row, near Feiyu's side, turned towards her with a snap. Their close proximity startled her slightly. Reporting to Deputy Director Yan, Yu Bai, captain of the 27th Operation Team of the Engineering Support Department, requests your instructions. He spoke loudly and clearly, almost as loud as Yu Gua. Feiyu raised her eyelids, staring at the man marked as captain on the team roster. "What's his problem, Deputy Commander Yan?" Yu Gua is just naturally nervous, but Feiyu keenly caught a moment of hesitation before Yu Bai answered. If there wasn't a problem, why would he bother to think about the wording? If there wasn't a problem, why would the whole team glance at Yu Gua? Yu Gua said, "The rest of you sign the consent form for the non-human division's underwater operations. Once you sign, we'll depart." "Report," Yu Gua suddenly shouted anxiously. "Deputy Commander Yan, I'm fine." Feiyu paused and looked back. "I'm just naturally nervous." Yu Gua gulped again. "No, I'm excited." "Why?" Feiyu took in the indescribable expressions on the team's faces. This is the first time our team has officially gone on an operation. I'm very excited." Seeing Feiyu's stern face and no expression, Yu Gua hurriedly continued, "Our Team 27 is different from other operation teams. We go to the sea, and they are all on land, so I am really very excited. Also, I am excited to be able to work with Deputy Director Yan. Deputy Director Yan taught us a class, and it was very good. Although I didn't pass, I made up for the training content based on your teachings." and I really benefited a lot. So just now, when you were about to take us to the sea, I felt very excited. Feiyu lowered her eyes to scan the previous course records of Team 27, and then reviewed Jaguar's health report. There was no nervous excitement. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.